Hello, good evening and welcome ladies and gentlemen to another round of high octane and highly entertaining racing action in none other than what is the SimRacing International GTE Championship Season 3 as brought to you on the premier sim racing platform available only on PC known as iRacing. That's right, we're back for our second round of intense racing action. In round 2 of 10 today we've made our way all the way to the US of A for none other than the picturesque countryside circuit. It's a classic and one of the oldest in the country. It is none other than Road America. A circuit which, since its opening all those many years ago, has remained entirely unchanged and unfazed its history when it comes to its layout. 4.04 miles in length and consisting of a grand total of 14 corners, it is the ultimate American power circuit. On the one hand, you have condensed corner sequences, a mixture of hairpins, sweepers, and even some fast-flying chicanes, and on the other, very long and expansive straights which bring all the drivers together over the course of what is a slipstream fuel battle into each and every heavy braking zone. Therefore, for the corners, the drivers have got to try and make an early break, otherwise on the straights they'll find themselves real back together. But who exactly is going to outpower their rivals today to emerge victorious here in the US of A? Well, that's what we'll find out. We're here to find out live from circuit side. Indeed, we're walking all to this live broadcast here at SimRacing International as you tune in tonight, catching all the racing action on our YouTube channel. That's on youtube.com and search for SimRacing International SRI. And why not subscribe today so that way you can stay up to date with all the latest action in our series, whether on a weekly basis or on a fortnightly basis like our GTE Championship. In the commentary booth you have myself as always. My name is Paul Walsh and I shall be your host and commentator for this season. And as we roar away into round number 2, we've got plenty to fill you in on. In regards to the story after round number 1, also plenty perhaps to expect with regards to round number 2, also some fresh face on the grid as well. So without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, let's jump straight into it and bring you up to speed with the story and what exactly you can expect here in our second round of the championship. For as we can see, last time out on the 7th of August, we were at the Fuji International Speedway, and we made our way all the way from Japan across the Pacific Ocean to the US state of Wisconsin. But last time out in our season opening round, what exactly went down over the course of what was a grand total of 90 minutes of racing action? Well, 52 drivers made their way onto the grid for our season opener in the foothills of Mount Fuji, and it was relatively cool temperatures in the sky. However, the track temperatures were soaringly high, with 38 to 40 degrees centigrade, or in the approximate region around 110 degrees Fahrenheit. It made time management the key theme of the racing, albeit when we went into qualifying, there was only one name who really dominated the timings, and he made sure that he was the theme that everyone was trying to beat. It was none other than Mirko Bortolotti, your Season 1 Elite Champion, continuing from where he left off all those many seasons ago, taking overall and pro pole position by the best part of 1700s ahead of teammate Hugo Robb. It was an all BMW front row with both drivers there enjoying their brand new BMW machines, and Benny Witte's Porsche and Tim Perry's Ferrari would line up on the second row with a 10th between them behind. Serena Tahar, meanwhile, took into pole position on her debut in GT Racing Machinery, which was 7th place overall, and that was 1.5 tenths ahead of Flavien Thierry and Oliver Kemp, who are only 200ths apart, but started 13th and 14th place, and it would be that spread of the pro drivers in amongst the inter top 3 which would really become important when we did go racing. However, before we come to talking about our racing, let's just make sure we also cover what happened in the qualifying session for the club class, and it went to the pole position to debutant Jan Pavlicek by 700ths of a second ahead of Mikel Salcuni, and the pair were 1700ths faster than even Hauptke, who still put on an impressive 3rd place. But then we went into the race where all the points were made, paid, and perhaps some lost. And what we got to see, there was some drama on the exit of turn number 1, where none other than Tim Perry and Nathan Allel came together, and Allel was forced to retire, and Tim Perry had to recover his way through the field in a slightly damaged Ferrari. Meanwhile, Tom Cordy and Ben-Luca Eckel later on the open lap also came together, and what it did mean that was the race would settle down after the loss of a couple of drivers in the field, and it would turn into a classic test of pace, consistency, and car management, with the strategy being a one-stop somewhere within an expanded 50-minute pit window. This all being part, of course, with the fact that we've unrestricted the fuel tanks this season. But the question as part of that pit stop was, would you change tyres or not, or change some tyres perhaps? Well, in the pro class, Mirko Bortolotti and Hugo Robb seemed to set to make it a 1-2, with Robb shadowing Bortolotti as best as possible into a technical issue in lap number 43, forced him to park up his car at turn number 10. In short, its wheelbase decided to turn itself off. Perhaps it was falling asleep, although I can tell you one thing, he wasn't falling asleep chasing down his rival, and in the end he was able to rejoin to finish in 7th place. But this did open up the way for Bortolotti to take victory, and Benny Witte to finish runner-up, and Christian Ablasser would fight his way through from 11th place all the way to the class podium, only 2 seconds seconds ahead of a tight chasing back of Florian Gooder, Matt Burrs, Tim Perry and Bobby Paceman, whose own heroic charge to 4th place from 10th place met a sour ending with an instant on the final lap. In the interclass, meanwhile, none other than Serena Tahar had a straightforward drive to victory, whereas Flavio Thierry had a poor start, which was compounded by an error in lap number 12, which saw him slip to the back of the class's top 10. Although he would fight his way all the way back through to being runner-up, passing Max Wheeler, who completed the podium on the penultimate lap with a brilliant move. Conversely, it would be Oliver Kemp, who was involved in a major incident on lap 1, which sent him to the back of the field, and he would have recovered to finish in 6th place, but 30 seconds behind the top 5. That was rounded out by Bence Labance and Alina Whitman. And therefore, on paper, it would seem as though perhaps Serena Tahar wasn't in the right class, given how she performed in the season opener. When you do put the context in the fact she was able to avoid the drama many of her rivals found themselves swarmed by, which she was able to have a straightforward race. But will she have a straightforward one today? And in the club class, meanwhile, well, it was Mikhail Sarkony who leapt into lead on the open lap and seemed to be pulling away to victory ahead of Ellen Olsen, Brian Beardsworth and a slow start in Jan Pavelcek. However, it was strategy that made such a critical difference over the race distance at Fuji, where Brian Beardsworth gambled to change less tyres than his rivals. I do believe not going for any tyres to be changed at the end, and also going with an overcut with it. It allowed him to take the win with the podium finishers of Brian Beardsworth, Mikhail Sarkony and Ellen Olsen in that order on the podium, separated by 11.4 seconds in total. So definitely a real eye-opening race at the Fuji International Speedway, and we're now here today at Road America for round number 2. It's the 21st of August. It's another 90-minute feature race round, with of course all of our feature races this season being 90 minutes in duration, and all of our endurance races being 2 hours by comparison, as we explained in the season opening broadcast. And after this round, we will be making our way southwards to what is one of the favourites in the Brazilian sphere of circuits, which is none other than the Autodromo Jose Carlos Pache, also known as Interlagos, on the 4th of September, and that will be for the first of our mixed weather conditions rounds and the first of our 2-hour races. Alas, let's stay in the present, and whilst we can't bring you the standings, of course, because those only become available after round number 2, so they'll be available going to the round 3 broadcast, what we can definitely do is talk a little bit about our host circuit for today. And it is the Road America circuit, the full course of which our drivers will be racing on. Located near the village of Elkhart Lake in the Sheboygan County of the state of Wisconsin. 4.04 miles in length or 6.51 kilometers, depending on your preference for units. Will never change the number of corners, 14 of them in total. And a huge thank you to iRacing.com, not just for their brilliant simulator, but the absolutely fantastic track maps contained within it. Now, this is a circuit which many do not need an introduction to, but we're going to give you one anyway. As our drivers roar the way up the start-finish straight, giving it an uphill ascent from turn 14 all the way to turn number 1. They'll find themselves completely flat out until they need to tap the brakes, going into the opening sweeping right-hander. Get it absolutely right, they'll then carry the speed down for the Kinker 2 and in towards the shite 90-degree right-hander at turn number 3. Then it'll be on the straight, down the moraine sweep and in towards the hairpin at turn number 5, where we head into a middle sector where all the corners are condensed together very tightly indeed. Out to the hairpin at turn 5, it's a blind rise and into a blind braking zone for the sharp 90-degree left-hander at turn number 6, and it's downhill through Hurry Downs at turn number 7 as the drivers will roar the way down into the 90-degree left-hander once again at turn number 8. Coming out to that corner and a hairpin with it, we then head into the American equivalent of the carousel from the Nürburgring, and the drivers come through turns 9 and 10. It's all about that late apex at turn number 10, and make sure you carry as much speed as possible before going into the infamous kink, the high-speed corner, which in these GTE machines, whether it be in qualifying or the race, we expect our drivers to be going as close as possible, if not perfectly possible, to flat out through the corner. Then they'll roar the way into the final sector that begins with Canada corner at turn number 12, and it's an uphill rise to the chicane at turns 13 and 13A. It's all about being flat out through there as much as you dare, and then into that final corner at turn number 14. Avoid the bump in the road, otherwise it could send you wide or send you spinning around before making your way onto the start-finish straight to complete lap or do it all over again, and we'll perhaps see the checkered flag. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, let's head to circuit side and see how our drivers are getting on with the best part of 20 minutes of qualifying still remaining. And as we do head to circuit side indeed right now, well, there's one name already starting to lead the way in qualifying, and perhaps it's no surprise, but we'll have to wait and see whether his rivals will be able to spring some surprise on him. Mirko Bortolotti has set the initial pace then at 59.880, albeit Marinko Jordanovski, fellow BMW driver and fellow Gazek's racing team driver, well, he's currently at second fast at the moment, 2 attempts or so behind, and then we do have Matt Burrs, the first of the Porsches, but Benny Witte immediately says, hold up a second, it's not going to be the BMW show today, we don't want Gazek's racing team having all the fun, as he makes his way on down, and right now looking quite quick out there, no doubt about it. Everyone on a slick tyre, of course, and we would expect that given the circumstances, whereby we've got no rain expected on the forecast state. It's pure sunshine, a little bit of cloud. But as Benny Witte sets the pace there now to 1 minute 59.827, we expect these lap times to continue to come cascading down as Bortolotti then responds, going 2.5 tenths faster than Witte and moving back onto pole at 59.567. But it's not just about those in the top class. In Pro, what's going on in the interclass? And then we see in the seconds here, Max Wheeler right now currently the second fastest, where Kevin Smith just inching his way slightly ahead at the moment as all the drivers head on the round here. And Kevin Smith, the margin, well, it's only there, what is 6, in fact 8 hundredths of a second, not quite a tenth. And then you have Ben Labance only a further, what is 6 hundredths behind. Oh, that's a little bit of an altercation there, and one driver going very deep. Couldn't quite tell you who that was, but I suspect they were towed to the pit lane, and something tells me, was that Nathan Healy there taking a bit of a moan? If so, well, he's definitely not in his standard livery in the car, I can tell you that, but definitely one driver going a bit too deep on the brakes and having to get it all back together. But as they do hell head on the round, Flavio Tiefri right now currently the full fastest out there, and Serena Tahar wrapping up the 5th of those in the interclass. Well, we can see they're 7th through to 11th for the moment until Thomas Pugh interrupts that order and makes his way into 10th place. And with that, it's only fair we give an introduction to this man. He is a newcomer to the grid for this round. Joining, he was on the reserve list, and he is taking over the slot in the pro class of Nathan Allel. Sadly, we won't be having Nathan Allel on the grid for us for the remainder of the season, but don't worry, he hasn't done anything bad. It's just due to personal circumstances not able to attend to the rest of the season, and we're very happy to see him on the grid for the season opener, but sadly it hasn't quite worked out, and we do wish Nathan all the best in his future endeavours and hope to see him back sometime soon. But Thomas Pugh takes his spot, and the Axis Sim Sports driver there with the team sponsored by SimWorks. You can see on the side of the car, he goes straight into the pro class and brings to the table the 345 BMW M8, and we wish him all the best on his debut today and look forward to seeing what he's going to be able to do. Now, for those of you who are strangers to Thomas Pugh, well, let's enlighten you. He's a driver who is regularly on our GT3 grid, and a very fast driver out there, no doubt about it. The only change has been, of course, the fact he's got to learn a GT versus a GT3. And the big transition he's going to have to learn is the absence of ABS, plus also the fact these cars are a bit more downforce compared to their GT3 peers, and approximate average around 50 more brake horsepower. Not 50% more horsepower, I was a bit pushing upwards to 700, and that would be definitely entertaining, but we're going a bit too far there. We are looking at somewhere in the region of 550 to 600 brake horsepower at the rear wheels, compared to GT3s having in the region of 500 to 550, depending on the car and the balance of performance. We wish Thomas all the best in his learning experience here, and indeed he is one of several drivers in a recent bit of iRacing downtime for maintenance work who decided to sample the GT machines. And I can tell you one thing, it's not just him, all of his Axis Import teammates have all put themselves on the reserve list, but it's Thomas who was able to beat them onto the reserve list, and he's earned that slot. But you never know, they could be appearing later on this season should we see some other drivers drop out. Not that we wish that, of course, on drivers, but it's always the way. We can always see some fresh faces make the way on to the grid. But as he makes his way on through it, it's not just Axis Import drivers who love taking the GT machines for a ride in the downtime. I do believe as well, Chaps Motorsports, Govind Suresh, if any of you remember him, of course, on the Thursday GT3 Championship Split B. He's also got his hands on the Corvette, the rumour tells, and he's been absolutely enjoying it, so you never know, we could see him on the future grid for our GTE Championship. Alas, I've digressed a little bit because I haven't talked about the club class and who right now is doing the best out there. Well, it's Jan Pelchet, the Czechia driver, making his way towards the timing line in the Corvette livery that definitely has a lot of inspiration there from the Pratt & Miller Motorsport, and indeed the 2023 GTE livery, as you do have Corvette's mascot, Jake, on the front of the car. And the helmet essentially with the duality, one side being black with a yellow eye and the other side being yellow background with a black eye there. Albeit hasn't been punched in the face, I can tell you that. That's typically English slang for saying that somebody has received an injury to that eye, if we do say they've got a black eye. But as he makes way through right now, Pavelchek there definitely taking inspiration from that 2023 winning season car. As he makes one down right now, what's he going to be able to do here today? Can he hold on to that pole position? I think he'd love to, but he'd also like to make amends for the Fuji start, whereby he lost the lead going into the opening quarters, lost several places, and in the end was not quite able to make it all the way back to the top step of the podium. Indeed, he had to settle for a slightly subpar result. But Mikhail Salkuni right now sits the best part of 2 places behind and 2 tenths behind with it. The two of them split by Jan Lintz, the pro driver, and then we do have Brian Beardsworth, a further, but he's 31 thousandths behind at this time. And well, Mikhail Salkuni was the driver who had the pace at Fuji. However, his gamble to change all 4 tyres in, plus put the fuel in the car, was what made the difference between him and Brian Beardsworth, with Brian Beardsworth in not changing any tyres as far as our memory recollects, and that's what gave him the breathing room, with also Salcuni having to fight his way past a few club drivers along the way in order to be able to take that victory. But to be fair, Brian Wordsworth at a different circuit today. Indeed, they all are. Could we see it go a bit of a different way, or do we see the strategies lean a different way? But as they're all heading around, we do say hello to a few more of you there in the YouTube chat. In fact, we say hello to any of you officially there in the YouTube chat. I'm getting a bit forgetful today. We say hello to Welsh Boy 2012 there, who says good evening all. Good luck to Full Tilt this evening. Hoping for a good race. And well, you speak of Full Tilt, so therefore let's tilt our camera, shall we say, pun definitely intended, towards our Full Tilt V Motorsport drivers out there. And here is Nathan Healy make his way onwards. And he definitely wasn't the driver who had that off at turn number 5, because they do have some new liveries on the car today, I do believe, Nathan being one of them. And I've got to say, that is a beautiful looking livery there. And the Full Tilt Virtual Motorsport, they do sometimes say don't fix what's not broken, and I would say that about the liveries they had on the cars in Season 2. However, if you can make improvements to something that's already epic in order to make it even better, go for it, I also say, although I'm almost contradicting myself, because how can you beat perfection with liveries they had in Season 2? Well, somehow FTVM have managed to do that right now. Even more striking liveries there, and Nathan Healy's 4GT looking absolutely beautiful, it must be said. Chef's kiss on that one to the livery designer, and we do say hello to Mark Kent there, I do believe, who said new liveries on the FTVM cars, so he gave us the heads up there. Thank you, Mark, for that. And I do believe Mark is the livery designer, unless I'm mistaken. So therefore, 10 out of 10 compliment there to Mark for the brilliant work he's done on the liveries. But it's not just about Nathan Healy's car, as we do look to Dwayne Hoffman as well, and running matching liveries in the cars here today. Whereas previously, I think they've had colour scheme alterations there, whereby it's typically been Dwayne Hoffman who's run the light blue main theme, whereas Nathan Healy's gone for the purple pink, and then we typically have seen Mark Kent go with the light red. But I think they're both running the purple with the white and golden stripes there. And that golden stripe, I suspect, in tribute to the fact they were your team's champions from Season 2, putting off that incredible achievement. But as we all do say hello as well there to Mikhail Ablasser. Good evening to you, Mikhail, and I hope you're doing well. And also, let's not forget that Katie Eves, of course, the superstar for Verano Esports, always cheering on a weekly basis, and good to see you here, Katie. And well, I hope you're doing well, and giving a big shout out there to Kev, Craig, Mikhail and Gianluca tonight for Verano Esports. And indeed, a bit of a still away there, and we did have a bit of a controversial statement from one of our spectators in the first day GT3 Championship yesterday with regards to Gianluca Rospo moving to Verano and saying that he's abandoned what has been at Deep Motorsport. Where is Rospo out there at the moment? Trying to find him, albeit we can't see him at the moment. We will find him eventually, but I don't think he's completely abandoned Deep Motorsport, but he's teamed up with Verano for this season, and can we fault him for it? The answer is definitely no. Sometimes teams have got to collaborate. Indeed, you've seen superheroes collaborate, if you've ever seen any movies or read any comics in the past, so why can't teams collaborate, albeit they have to run with one name? And so Gianluca Rospo running under the Verano Esports banner, and well, the Italian star definitely bringing his efforts to the team. That is definitely populated many a star around the globe, including a fellow Italian in the form of Michael Salcudi. But you also do have the Britons of Craig Tillotson and also Kieran Smith. Although Craig Tillotson on screen there, deciding to trim some weeds coming out of turn number 7. Easy mistake to make his BMW M8 as he heads to the grass and parks up, and he gets ready to go again. Well, as they do head on around, well, Mark Kent saying there that Dwayne Hoffman hasn't updated his livery. Well, fair play, so we'll get to see that in round number 3, I suspect, unless he updates it between now and we do go racing. But in the meantime, we also do say hello there to Hus RC, who's wishing everyone the best luck, and hope you're doing well, Hus. It's always good to see you tuning in. And also KT Gale there saying good luck to Gazex. And well, it's always great to see some fans there for one of our teams. There definitely seem to be some of the favourites so far this season, given their pace. But of course, we are only 1 round out of 10 in, so therefore let's not read too much into it this time. But perhaps the big question is, can anybody trouble Mirko Bortolotti, as Renko Jolanowski goes a bit wide at 1, and therefore he invalidates his lap and decides it's time to get the car back into the pits and get ready to do a new one. But as Benny Witte heads on around, well, at one point he was on pole, but right now provisionally he's down in 6th place. He's half a second off the overall pole time, but there's more time out there as they roar the way onwards. And as everyone gets themselves set, the big question is going to be, of course, how important will strategy be here at Road America? Now at Fuji, what we did see is strategy was just as potent as pace. Perhaps to help answer the question, let's talk a little bit about the weather conditions here. What we can see is we do have an ambient temperature of 19 degrees centigrade and a track temperature currently of 29 degrees centigrade. That track temperature is likely to rise as the qualifying session unfolds, and also on top of that, as we do see more and more drivers out there, and indeed as we also see time progress, as we are gradually going to head in sim time towards midday, which is when our race will start. And so therefore, understandably, we are going to get into a position whereby this circuit will warm up. We're not at the peak temperatures at the moment, as we see Alina Whitman make her way down towards turn number 1. And, well, that could mean we're seeing track temperatures somewhere in the region of around about 40 plus, perhaps at the start of the race. And therefore, tyre life, again, is going to be a big fault. However, Road America as a circuit is very different compared to Fuji. Fuji, of course, had the extremely long start-finish straight, the best part of what was a kilometre in length. Here at Road America, over the 4.04 miles, let's stay with miles here to keep the unit simple, you've got about 2.5 miles of straight. That means when you do have the run from the final corner into turn 1 and the run here from turn 3 towards turn number 5, you've got plenty of opportunities to try and slipstream, offer a rival, indeed do some fuel saving. And by slipstream and lifting coasting into corners, you can also protect the tyres and the brakes a little bit because you're not carrying as much speed by default. So therefore you can be a bit gentler on the brakes, and therefore that means the tyres have to go through less of a stopping effect. And on corner exits as well, if you're in a pack, you may decide to be a little bit more careful with your acceleration or perhaps short shift in order to reduce wheel spin. So it could be the situation whereby we see some drivers not qualify too well, but they will gradually pull themselves up through the ranks as Alina Whitman there goes very sideways coming out of turn number 8. But to be fair to her, very well controlled then the Ford GT. You could see some drivers qualify not too well, but they could come through the field and take victory or make it onto the podium in their class simply because they've managed the tyres, they've saved the fuel, and it all adds up for them. However, having a pace advantage can be very powerful, and if you can make a break away from the rest of your class and run away to victory, it could prove just as valuable, but it really will be an all or nothing approach if you want to take that, because you're not going to be able to save too much fuel in doing so, and that's going to be the hard part for drivers at Fuji, of course, with there being more corners than straights. And then it was about making sure you've mastered your corner speeds there, but also protected your tyres to be able to give yourself the best chance, or you have to come into the pits and change some tyres as well as take fuel. Here, tyre management, it will be valuable, albeit because you've got a lot of straights and heavy braking zones. Perhaps it's not going to be as important to manage all 4 tyres. It's the rear tyres that will definitely take the brunt of the beating here at Road America. Although that front left, it will look very exposed coming into the racing. Given the fact we have got some very aggressive corners for the front left tyre, particularly the carousel that runs in towards the kink. That trio of corners, so turns 9, 10 and 11, will definitely put a lot of excessive wear in that front left tyre, and some drivers may find themselves understeering later on in the race. That's what they've got to be careful of. But as we do say hello there to Ryan Racing, who says that I'm going to have my hands full when it comes to Transatlantic Trophy on Wednesday at Miami. And indeed, it's going to be a bit of a busy week next week in terms of all the broadcasts there in Transatlantic Trophy for round number 2 at Miami. I do believe we're expecting mixed conditions there in a 90-minute race with McLaren GT3s and GT4s. Well, if that doesn't make you salivate at the prospect of intense racing, if you're not already salivating, I should say, at GTE racing, I don't know what is going to make you salivate, to be fair. Alternatively, you've already been fed with so much racing over the course of this week at SRI that your tummy is full, and therefore you need to go on a bit of a diet. I'm not saying you should, to be fair, although I definitely need to go onto a diet, or I need to go outside and get some more exercise, it would seem, my doctor says. As Gross Vazkevicius meanwhile parks up, and as he does so, well, he was the driver who had that excursion at turn 5 earlier on, I do believe. Very similar livery car, unless my eyes and memory do deceive. But one thing we haven't got so far is an on-board lap or two with some of our drivers. So without further ado, let's make our way over to Jan Lentz as he heads towards the timeline here in the absolutely aggressive red-hot Gazex Racing Team livery Corvette. And let's see what he can do here. Can he 420 blaze it down towards turn number 1? Well, he does so here, carrying the speed as he gets ready to head into that braking zone at a speed of 160 miles an hour plus. Looks to his left-hand side, and onto the brakes he goes, and as he does so, going all the way down to 3rd gear, mounts the curb absolutely perfectly, and now heads down towards turn number 3. Through the kink and onto the brakes, he looks to his left-hand side for the 2 board. That'll be his brake marker between the 2 and the 1. It's all down to the driver's judgment, late apex, and very smooth there for Lentz. He now heads up towards turn number 5. But as he makes his way down, and underneath the Sargento cheese board, well, right now he's definitely not cheesed anything so far, and we're getting ready up for the next braking zone here. The theme being 90-degree corners so far. As he looks to his right, brakes at the 2 board, approximately 150 meters of corner apex, all the way down to 2nd gear, and now stamps the throttle, heads up the hill. But now it's blind up into turn number 6. You'll see he brakes at the Corvette billboard. He can't see the corner before he brakes for it, so he's got to do it based on memory, and now coming out to turn number 6 in towards 7. Listen there for the lift. Some drivers will try to go flat out through there, depending on the setup of the car, but Lentz having to lift and coast his way through the corner. Now breaking his way down towards turn number 8, finding a car in front of him. That's why the Gavmax Racing Corvettes that he's caught. And not quite sure which one. I think that's Max Dean in front of him, as he now has to wait here. And for Lentz, this is going to be a compromise run, as Max Dean goes very deep, and Lentz is going to have to back off the lap. So unfortunately there, as he makes his way on through, well, we do see Max Dean step aside. Good awareness from Dean, to be fair, but he did the right thing in qualifying conditions, which is hold his line. But then I think he pressured himself mentally into an error because he did see Jan Lins coming up, and Lins decides to park offline and go back to the pit lane. So in the end, a bit of a scuppered lap, and we'll get another on board very shortly. But for Jan Lins, a bit of a frustrating moment there. But what can you do? That's the way it goes sometimes in qualifying, and particularly when you do have a grand total of almost 50 drivers here today. In fact, I think we have a grand total of 50 drivers here at Road America. Even though we're a 4-mile circuit, you do your 4 miles divided by 50 drivers, and quick maths will tell you that it is going to be a grand total of 0.08 miles, or what would be approximately in the region of none other 0.13 kilometres, or in other words 130 metres from car to car if you equally space them out. And well, I'm not going to start to compare that into what would be gridiron pitches or anything along those lines. I'm not going to go into crazy metrics here today. I'm definitely going to get some of those up my sleeve, aren't I? If any of you are a big fan of soccer, or what is known as football in the United Kingdom, and you know the length of an average football pitch, feel free to convert 130 metres into football pitches and get the statistic that way. It's always good to see some of those absolutely crazy statistics. But Mark Kent's saying it looks a quick lap there from Jan Lins, 100%. It definitely looked as though it was going to be a quick one. Unfortunately, not quite. As meanwhile, well, the Who driver here, that's none other than Matt Buzz. And well, the Who once said, I can see for miles and miles. And I think I can see for miles and miles here, at least 4 miles, an on-board lap coming. So let's get on board with Matt Buzz as he makes his way up towards turn number 1. And the 5th fastest driver at the moment, looking to try and make his way into the second row, into the opening bend in the Porsche 911 RSR, as he comes through turn number 1. Through in third gear there, one driver trimming the weeds. I believe that might have been Thomas Weston having a bit of a moment there. As now we do see Buzz parking his way in towards turn number 3 of the Ford GTE Charge off the road. That is Thomas Weston. So Weston are wary of Buzz, and immediately Buzz allowed now to carry on his lap unimpeded. But as he makes his way down towards turn number 5, well, he's going to have no slipstream to work with here. Instead, all he can see as he comes down in towards the braking zone is his markers on the right hand side. And as they come down in towards brake marker at turn number 2, of the number 2 I should say, for turn number 5, carries a bit too much speed, and he does throw the lap away. That's going to validate the lap there, trimming what was the outer edge of the gravel into grass. We're going to stay on board here because I think Buzz is going to carry on full pelt, even though he's made that mistake, as he makes his way through turn number 7 there. He's going to give it a go at least. Now into the braking zone here for turn number 8, braking at that 2 board on the right hand side. Takes a lot of early apex there, and I think that's all about simply getting the rotation in the Porsche. He now rolls his way through the carousel. Intentionally goes deep here if you're wondering why, because what he's doing, this two-way you can cut this. You can go for the U-shape approach or the V. He's going for the V, which is go deep and then come back on yourself at turn number 10. And now into the kink, let's listen in. And completely flat out there, Matt Buzz in 6th gear, 151 miles an hour, attacks the apex of the kink, and now heading down towards turn number 12 at Canada Corner, final section of lap. Braking there at the 3 board, coming all the way down to 3rd gear, and with it 77 miles an hour at the apex, and clearing the corner up towards turns 13 and 13A. From right into left, he goes. He comes over the rise, and now gets him ready for turn number 14. Small bump in the road, pulls very far to left there. Not seen that line in a while from a driver, and that might be an indication that Buzz doesn't feel 100% confident he can hit that bump without the rear of the Porsche letting go, but now makes his way over the rise towards the timeline. What's it going to be here from our pro driver? And what doesn't look to be an improvement, to be fair, as he crosses the line at 158 miles an hour, and the answer is going to be no improvement. He did invalidate the lap at what was turn number 5, that brief cut, and well, he wasn't on course for a better lap either. All of his sectors were down on personal best. Meanwhile, looking a bit further down, the other 3.5 minutes to go. And right now, are there surprises out there? Are there any shocks? Well, the biggest surprise at the moment is in the interclass. Look who your original pole sitter is. It's none other than Clyde Vella, the 256 driver, who makes his way around. And well, the Maltese driver here definitely looking to be the Maltese master of that Porsche 911 in the interclass. Seeing 11th overall at the moment, should things stand. And what is the best part there of almost a 10th quicker than Flavien Tieffri, who's on an outlap. And well, here's Flavien. And well, can he find a way to strike back here right at the end of the session? Now, Serena Tahar is a 10th off, and it's a further 400s to Alina Whitman. And Kevin Smith there completes that top 5 in the interclass as it stands. In club, Mikhail Salkuni, the winner, of course, from what was Fuji when it came to the pace, but not the race itself. That was Brian Beardsworth. Well, Salkuni, of course, here potentially for his first pole position of the season. Jan Pavlicek is still 1.5 tenths behind, so it's all looking good for Salkuni, and Pavlicek is in the pit lane. He's not going back out there, so Pavlicek will not be sent any more laps in qualifying. So Salkuni could have an open door opportunity in his Ferrari 488 GTE Evo to try and take that pole position. We'll see if he can do it. Of course, the responsibility of his rivals to improve, but they don't seem to be improving out there at all. As meanwhile, other surprises. Well, at the very top in the Pro class, Mirko Bortolotti, no surprise perhaps there. He's currently the fastest still, although he is 1.5 tenths ahead of Mirko Bortolotti, and we could be seeing two BMWs on the front row once again. Two GTE Racing BMWs. Going a bit of a trend here, but this time it's Bortolotti rather than Hugo Robb. But as the drivers head on the round, well, also some updates there with regards to drivers who may not be on the grid today, including Bobby Paceman, who sadly can't make this round of racing, and that's because he's away on a family vacation. He tried to plan the holiday around the race, but unfortunately wasn't successful in doing so. His family said, no, you need to spend time with us. Not that I think he'll complain. Oh, that's got a bit wrong for Christian Ablasser. So what's happened there? Can we get a quick replay? I think we can. And this was Ablasser making his way through the chicane. As he did so, find a car right in front, and in the end, and Jan Lintz once again finds another car at the worst possible moment, and a GTE Racing Team car as well at that. So GTE Racing Team, they're a bit of friendly fire between them all, as we do come back to your live qualifying action. Not long left to go in this qualifying session then, less than what will be and the best part there of a minute by the time we do see Matt Bowers make his way through turn number 5, and as he rolls his way through the corners, right now definitely we are at the crunch point here. But beyond Bobby Paceman not being here and Nathan Allel's withdrawal from the grid for this season, I do believe that's all the drivers we are aware of who are not going to be able to make this round. As Mark Kent confirms that 130 metres is approximately 1 to 1.5 football pitches depending on size. Well, I've learned something new. I thought all football pitches were universally equal. Perhaps not there, although my football knowledge isn't quite as good as it perhaps should be. You know, I'm a bit of a Tottenham Hotspur fan, although right now, please don't tell me about how we're doing in the Premier League. I'd rather not go there. Let's focus on GTE racing. I didn't mention I support Tottenham. Never happened. We're clipping out that part of this broadcast, I promise you. Alas, as we come back to those drivers who are out there, Craig Tillotson making his way through, and also Drain Hoffman comes towards the line, albeit he comes flying on past there, as we do see the part-top car Stefan Gambi, and Drain Hoffman is going to be one of the very last drivers to go on to a flying lap. Does anybody else squeeze the one-to-one right at the end? Well, Craig Tillotson definitely has. Here's a Saavedra. Meanwhile, the Spaniard is not going to, and he twitches his way out to the final corner. As he heads up towards that timeline, what's it going to be here for Jesus? And the answer is going to be 2:15 Porsche 911. Well, the timeline has been triggered, and the answer is it is no valid lap, unfortunately. So, for Jesus Saavedra, he's going to be starting at the very back of the field, as is Oliver Kemp, as is Ellen Olsen, and Andy Rooney. However, one of those is a bit different from the other, we should point out, in the fact that we do have a drive-through penalty today for Oliver Kemp, and that is for picking up in excess of 10 licence points in the season opening round. So, therefore, he will have to serve that at some point in the race, but it must be served any time after the start of the race, so it will be on the end of lap 1 all the way through to the penultimate lap. It cannot be served on the final lap because that would be being a bit cheeky and gaming the system. And as we do see Mirko Bortolotti heading on through, well, right now, he is still trying to find that time to beat Mirko Bortolotti, but I don't think he's going to find it. Track temperature is gradually coming up at the moment. As we show you, the weather there has come up to 30 degrees centigrade. It's gone up by 1 degree since the start of the session. However, that 1 degree makes a big difference there. The track is getting hotter, and it does mean tyre life is getting relatively shorter when it comes to push laps, as we do see Bortolotti up through the last couple of corners in his BMW AM8. The outline, the fact it's front engine rear wheel drive, whereas all the other cars are mid engine rear wheel drive. Right now, the bold BMW mark definitely making its mark here in this qualifying order. We do have 3 BMWs inside the top 4. The only one who's not BMW is Tim Perry in his Ferrari. But here comes Bortolotti towards the line. And what's it going to be this time? Can he find a way to close the delta to Bortolotti? The answer is no. He stays where he is. Second, that's a 2 minute 0.873, whereas his previous best has been a 59.482. And no further progress there. As Jesus Saavedra, meanwhile, is on a lap. However, going wide out of turn 12, that's going to invalidate the lap by default, but did set some personal best sectors there. So, knows they've got some pace in the tank, but unfortunately have not been able to set a lap before the end of the session. So that's a bit of a gut wrencher. And all of the other drivers now cooling and calming down as Matt Bowers makes his way into the final quarter. And I suspect very shortly he'll be coming in to the pit lane. But as he gets ready to do so, ladies and gentlemen, well, we take a look to the scenic view, and that is qualifying complete. And, well, it's Mirko Bortolotti who takes his second pole of the season there at 59.309 overall and in pro, with Mirko Bortolotti line up alongside him there, as you see him going through the picture to return to the pit lane. Tim Perry and Thomas Pugh line up on the second row. Thomas Pugh on his debut, taking a full place. Well done to him. That's an impressive start to his season. Clyde Vella ends up taking his maiden pole position there in the Interclass 11th overall, ahead of Robert Papai, who jumped ahead of Flavin TF3 right at the end there by a grand total of only was 800ths of a second for Papaya versus Vela, and then a further what was none other than 8,000ths of a second there from Papaya to Tiefre. And we did see in the club class there, Mikhail Sarkoony make it his first pole position of the season, 23rd overall, with 2 places between him and Jan Pavlicek, the man who took pole at the Fuji circuit, albeit the gap between the two of them 1.5 tenths. And a bit further back, Brian Beardsworth, the championship leader, just ahead of Nathan Healy there, with the two line up on 28th and 29th overall respectively. That's qualifying complete. As we do now progress time forward to a degree, we head into the warm-up period, so it's 5 minutes. It's the come from break session, and all the drivers get an opportunity now to potentially look at getting the right setup on the car, alternatively making sure they're all right before they get into the car and go green flag racing. A few drivers will sit in their cars, others will make their way out into the circuit, and then some will decide not to go even in the car, they'll just simply sit outside, as we do see Matthew Massey make his way on down. And as he does so, well, what's gone wrong there with regards to Matthew Massey's info, because we normally do have a picture for him and also the car, not quite sure, and I think we might be having a bit of a technical issue for some of our drivers out there as Thomas Pugh heads on through. But sometimes it does happen, to be fair. It does seem as though Matthew Massey's data has decided that it doesn't want to show itself. We are going to see if we can fix that in the background, as that's a little bit of a shock to the system there, ladies and gentlemen. Not normally something that does happen. Can we perhaps find it this time? And the answer is going to be, let's give it a quick refresh there with regards to our overlay, and that's on our end, not on yours, and sadly Matthew Massey's data not coming through. So it does seem as though that's got lost in the post. We'll have to find that next time. We do apologise for that, as in fact Max Dean as well. It does seem as though we're perhaps missing a few bits of data from different drivers, and the Gav Max Racing driver avoid his way on around. But as he does so, indeed as they all do, well, we're not too far away from going green flag racing now, and when we do, it's definitely going to be exciting to see who will come out on top and who meanwhile is going to find themselves falling a little bit behind the rest of their peers. Well, Max Dean not quite having the qualifying session he wanted necessarily, but sometimes that's the way it goes, a driver, and the whole full process has got to be, you've got to try and pick yourself up now and go all in. You've got to try and make up for all the ground that you've lost earlier on in the day. As Max Dean makes his way on round, well, as he does so, we also do look to none other than what will be the machinery of Stefan Gambi, who roars his way on through the corners right now. There's your privateer in the 220 car, and well, the Frenchman definitely looking cool, calm and collected, and was had a decent qualifying performance, but he'll be hoping for even more in the race as he rolls off the bends. But do place your thoughts now, do let us know who you're cheering on, and also on top of that, do let us know who you think is perhaps going to take victory today. As we do say hello to Bobby Paceman there in the YouTube chat, who wishes everyone the best of luck and to have fun, and indeed we've got Bobby tuning in. Great to have you tuning in, Bobby. Sad you couldn't be here today, but of course you're with us in spirit, and we always do love that. What we are going to do very briefly, ladies and gentlemen, given the fact we've got 2.5 minutes, and we are having this slight issue with some driver data being loaded, we are just going to refresh our overlay, so we're going to go a bit quiet, close the overlay down, and we'll be right back to see if we can get it to return back to life. And well, ladies and gentlemen, unfortunately, we do seem to have this ongoing technical issue with regards to our driver data not appearing for the majority of our drivers. So, unfortunately, it's something that I don't think we are going to be able to resolve here today. And what we are instead going to, we're just going to focus forward at this point and focus on the racing that is to come. We'll look into that for the purposes of round number 3 onwards. As John Lubbock for GPX and what Zenon makes one around at the moment. Indeed, we're not too far away from going green flag. We see Rhino Esport there, predicting a couple of Rhino podiums today. And, well, definitely feeling as though perhaps for Mikhail Sarkoony, this could be an opportunity for him to take what would be that first win of the season. We'll have to wait and see if that's the way it plays out, because we've got 90 minutes of racing coming up. very shortly, and over the course of 90 minutes, it'll be plenty of fun, plenty of excitement. That's what we always love to see between all the drivers. It's always going to be one of those whereby they'll give it their all, they'll throw everything they can at it, but who exactly is going to be the one who comes away with victory? That's what we're going to find out. As John Lebret makes his way towards the line, only 30 minutes to go. Not 30 minutes, I should say, 30 seconds to go there. And, well, right now, he'll definitely have done all that he can, potentially, in this practice session. And there's going to be no time left, perhaps, for him, as he decides to go trim the weeds for a brief moment. And I think that's just simply there. He just want to get the car off the road when he can. But as he does, well, meanwhile, we do look to none other than will be Benny Witte, as he roars wound around. And, well, just with that, the Zambo RP Motorsport machine and its wonderful moustache leaves us be and sends us, of course, into what will be the gridding procedure then for round number 2 of the SimRacing International GTE Championship Season 3, brought to you today from Road America, hosted, of course, on iRacing. And as the world drivers make their way onto the grid, this is how they'll all line up for our second round of the season today. Mirko Bortolotti making it back-to-back pole positions, and they're going to see if he can convert it into his second pro win of the season and continue a win streak. The GazX Racing Team driver joined that front row by Mirko Bortolotti, and he'll start in second there for M-Team GazX. Then between the two BMWs, it was 1.7 tenths, and there was only a further 100th to Tim Perry for Scuderia GPX. And the sole Ferrari representative inside the top 20. Well, he starts his day in third place there, looking to see if he can put the Italian machine on the top step of the podium. He'll be joined in that second row of the grid by debutant and a very happy BMW Access SimSport driver, Thomas Pugh. Well done to him for his debut qualifying lap there. A highly impressive fourth place in qualifying. And a further half attempt behind, it was Matt Bowers, 5th place there, the privateer. Then we do see from the Hugo machine, it'll be Benny Witte for Reptile Racing. And the German driver there will be then followed up by Hugo Robb for M-Team GazX. And the Swede only imagine 7th today, but to be fair, not a bad place to start. Given the fact, Christian Ablasser joins in there for GazX Racing Team. And remember what Christian was able to do at Fuji last time out. Started 11th in class and stormed his way onto the podium. The Austrian driver, well, he'll be looking to try and make it 2 podiums back-to-back. Kai Hitcher starts in 9th place there for Leopard Esports, with the German driver followed up there by none other than Yannis Albert. And from the Quad Dash Racing driver, we then do see starting in 11th place, Clyde Vella for GPX SimSport Onyx. He takes his first into pole position of the season, does the Maltese 256 driver, and he's done that very much so by the best part there of 800ths of a second. However, splitting him from Robert Papai, the man who is 800ths behind for Zambo RP Motorsport, started 14th, Eshan Lins for ART, Team GazX, and full Valenti V Racing's Florian Gooder. Then we do see from Robert Papai to 15th, Flavien Thierry, the Supersport Racing driver. It is only a grand total of 7,000. And, well, Flavien Thierry completes the top 3 of the interclass. Joined on the 8th row of the grid by the winner last time out, of course, at Fuji in the interclass, Serena Tahar for Quad Dash Racing. Alina Whitman starts in 5th of the class, 17th overall for full Valenti V Racing, ahead of Kevin Smith-Rano Esports, and these gaps are tight. It was only a further 5,000 to Bence Labance, who starts 19th for Zambo RP Motorsport, and we do have Max Wheeler there for LBP Autosport, completing your top 20. Outside the top 20, 21st on the grid, it's Renee Russler for ART Team GazX, and we do have Robin Noel Brown for GPX M8 Motorsport there, completing row 11. Then 23rd on the grid, taking pole position in the club class, Michael Salcuni for Verano Esports, and the Italian will be joined in that 12th row by John Becker for Supersport Racing. Jan Pelchek starts 25th ahead of Jesse Payne Wilkins, and the Full Tilt Virtual Motorsport red driver there, the third driver who we didn't talk about earlier on. I do apologise to Jesse for that, because we talked about his teammates, but not him, and well, he'll be followed up by John Ludbrook for GPX Supersport Xenon. It'll then be Brian Beardsworth, 28th, the GPX SimSport Onyx driver. Will need to try and find a bit of a strategic gambit once again, try and make it 2 wins out of 2 in the club class. And Nathan Healy follows him up there for Full Tilt Virtual Motorsport Purple with another impressive qualifying performance. Tom Weston starts 30th, and behind the privateer in the interclass, it'll be 31st place there for Stefan Gambi, the privateer. Dwayne Hoffman for Full Tilt Virtual Motorsport Purple. He starts 32nd, a bit better in terms of his qualifying performance compared to what was at Fuji in terms of his lap pace. And then we do see none other than Brandon White, 30th for Itbox Racing. On the 17th row alongside White, it'll be Tom Cordy for LBP Autosport, and it's Gianluca Rospo 35th on the grid for Deep Motorsport, and he'll be in the company there of Matthew Massey, the Spectra Racing privateer. Then we have Korolis Vaskevicius, who starts in 37th, ahead of Ivan Hauptke for GPX M8 Motorsport. We have top 40 being completed there by Jordan Butler for Spectra Feet Simworks.co.uk, and we'll also have there Steve Carter, the German driver, completing the top 40 in a highly competitive club class. Speaking of which, more club drives to follow. Max Dean for GavMax Racing 41st, ahead of Jose Martinez, 42nd for Valera TV Racing Rose, and the Mexican followed up by the Briton of Gareth Newton, and then it'll be at Said Becker, who completes row 22. On row number 23, it's Craig Tillotson for Rhino Esports, head of Gavin Corby for GavMax Racing. GavMax Racing have definitely got a lot of work to do today if they want to make it a pair of top 10s in the club class. And then we do have Heza Stedra, who was meant to start 47th, not setting a lap, and deciding to start for the pit lane for Vanilla TV Racing Rose. Ellen Olsen will start 48th on the effective grid, and World Vanilla TV Racing Peak Drive does make it onto the grid, and Andy Rooney starts on the back of the field, then 49th for Virtual Motorsport Red, and starting last but by no means least is Oliver Kemp for Concord Motorsports, although deciding, I believe, in fact, is there a technical issue, we may not be seeing Oliver Kemp take to the grid for this one or start from the pit lane. But with that, this formation app continues. It's almost to a close, and as all the drivers trickle the way around right now, hidden by the tree line. Well, the good news is we've got more than just a blimp camera, and Mirko Bortolotti is almost ready to take us green flag racing for the second time this season. But when he does so, well, ladies and gentlemen, we'll be going green flag for what will be 90 minutes of racing action, and it'll be over to Mirko Bortolotti to do so as he makes his way through the final corner. And it is go, go, go for the second time this season as they make the way down towards turn 1. A good start there for Bortolotti, but Rico Jordanowski getting the better start of the two BMWs. But as all the field makes its way to this opening bend, well, of course, it's all about who's the bravest of the brakes here, as we do see a free wide in the mid-pack. Albeit that's free wide there between Yannis Albert, Christian Ablasser and Kai Hitcher. But in the end, that's going to be Christian Ablasser slightly elbowed out wide as they all make it back onto the road safely. And coming on further down in towards the opening braking zone of turn number 3. We can see there, oh, a big scramble, a couple of drives being elbowed around, and Thomas Westner definitely getting his elbows a bit wide. I believe that might have been Jan Pawelczyk being elbowed around along with John Ludbrook. And Jan Pawelczyk definitely falling down into the clutches of Brian Beardsworth here, but they've all made it through the open few corners. And further back there we do see Jose Martinez of Vanilla TV Racing Rose into 42nd already. But as our drivers make the way through turn number 5, well, right now a few drivers getting clear, Rico Jordanowski and Mirko Bortolotti, but there's drama further back. We see a few drivers going wide there. Want to get a replay of that when we can. Oh, car going around, and that's a big spin for Nathan Healy. Healy's got around there. That was the Ford GT throwing itself to the inside of the circuit, and the full tilt Motorsport driver definitely loosed out there, and a few other drivers being called out as well, including, oh, and there's been a further incident, that's Ben Slavans, and who's that with? Is that Sal Cooney? It is Sal Cooney. Sal Cooney's had an incident there at turn number 7, or turn number 6 into turn, I should say, and the Rhino Esports driver will slip down the order now, and let's wait and see how he gets himself back together shortly. But not the way to go whatsoever, and I think there's further contact there with the car of Steve Carter, and for Sal Cooney puts himself in the middle of the road. Everyone else to part the season around in there, everyone does very well to do so, but it's a dramatic start to the race for several drivers, and meanwhile other drivers carried on. But oh goodness me, Rob Papaya there decides to go rally cross at the king. That's not something you ever want to do, but he gets it back of the road just about as Alina Whitman says, thank you very much, I'll take that off for you. And Thomas Weston getting ready to attack now. West looking up the inside there, definitely a bit of a bruised for GT. Papaya goes wide and deep, and doesn't even make the corner. He does in the end make it in the gravel trap, albeit the Hungarian driver there. It looks like there's a problem with that car because that did not want to turn in. And also a bit further back there, we've had the same occur for none other than the Corvette, or I believe that's the Corvette Jan Pawelczyk, as meanwhile Tom Cordy for LBP Autosport is picking off the places very rapidly indeed. Well, it's definitely been a dramatic start to this race, no doubt about it. There's plenty more laps to come. We need to get some replays of everything that's happened. There's so much happening, we've missed quite a bit of it. But after one lap, it's Mirko Bortolotti who leads, ahead of Rico Jordanowski, followed by Tim Perry. That's your top 3. They're 1.5 seconds clear. Benny Witte, followed by Thomas Pugh. There were Kai Hitcher, Yannis Albert and Florian Gooder completing those 4 pro drivers. All the way down to 8th place overall. Clyde Vella, still your inter-leader from pole position of the class, running 9th now, ahead of Christian Ablasser. And you have your second of your inter-drives, Flavio Thierry in 11th place. And the Supersport Racing driver has Jan Lintz behind him. And then it's Kevin Smith who runs third currently in the IMSA. He had a brilliant start going all the way from 6th to 3rd. But Serena Tahar here squeezed up the inside. And Tahar here really goes for it early. Bold. But does she get it stopped? The answer is no. Too much speed in the dream. And unfortunately, the two are not compatible as she now brings herself back into the road. And Kevin Smith retakes the 3rd place. But Lena Whitman now gets ready to potentially attack as well. John Lubrock, meanwhile, looks to try and go on the offence here versus Hugo Robb. Is he going to be able to do so? The answer seems to be no, not quite. Renee Russler tries to look for a move as the drivers roll the way through. But as they do, right now for John Lubrock, it's proving to be a bit of a challenging race thus far. But the GTE Sports Z driver will definitely keeping his head down as much as possible, as that's Kevin Smith regaining traction from the gravel trap. So the Rhino Esports drivers had a major off, and well, we haven't quite caught down camera in terms of how it started. We've definitely seen how it ended, and not the way he wanted it to go whatsoever. Some more drama there for Rhino Esports. Oh my goodness, and that is the BMW there, Hugo Robb, and it goes all the way to the barrier there, coming out to the carousel, and the M-Team Gazix Racing driver absolutely losing out there. But was he forced out there, or did he make a mistake of his own doing? Well, we'll find out shortly, but until the answers on the postcard. As meanwhile, well, this is going to be a postcard on the braking being sent by Renee Russler if he gets this done, versus John Lubrock. But they touch once, well, they touch again here, coming up into the chicane as they fight over 8th place in the interclass, and Russell's going to try and go round the outside of Lubrock. He's going to brave it, and my goodness, is he brave there. Not many would try and do that, particularly this early on the race with cold tyres. Well, tyres are warming up as Thomas Weston goes spinning around. And your number 298 driver goes barreling to the grass there on the inside. Well, he's had even more drama. He's already had a dramatic start to the race, but now he's parked up there and goes no further until the field passes him and he's got space to go. But as he drops down the order like a stone, well, here's Hugo Robb following Max Dean around at the moment. He's definitely going to try and pick up the places, as are so many drivers here. And it has been a dramatic start for so many. Several cars in the pit lane as well taking repair work. And Hugo Robb's going to be one of them. But we are 2nd lap down on the board. Well, Brian Beardsworth in all of this now finds himself your club leader. How about that? He's suddenly taken over at the head of the pack. And Jan Pavlicek is the best part of 4 seconds behind ahead of Jordan Butler and Karolis Vaskevicius. With even Hauptke and Ellen Olsen completed the top 6 of the class. Here is Ellen Olsen. She's already come from 17th of the class up towards 6th place. That's absolutely lightning rapid there for the 127 driver. Right now, Felicity VU Racing at the pink driver has got the pressure of Steve Carter behind. And Carter, of course, was involved in a little bit of a scuffle earlier on, but he seems to have settled it down. Now makes his way into that braking zone behind Olsen and even Hauptke. Hauptke goes defensive. Olsen tries to go around the outside. That's not going to work. So they now make the way up the hill. Olsen goes to the switchback here. Just slightly grazes the rear of Hauptke's car. Albeit, to be fair, contact like that, that's a racing instant and the worst case scenario. And these drivers right now running together as best as possible. But Hauptke definitely seeing what he can do here as he makes his way through the bend. As he rolls off. Well, right now, still more to come, no doubt about it. But Hauptke here definitely will be feeling that he's going to have to try and get a bit of a move on here, or get Olsen to fall into a bit of pressure with the drivers behind. Because right now, Olsen definitely is putting the pressure on him instead. As they roll the way out the corners, well, these drivers still very close together, but this is now we start to immediately move into a bit more strategic theme, because a lot of drivers might be starting to think to themselves, you know what, if I can't make the move stick early on, it's now time I better start saving some fuel, some tyre life. But if you're Ellen Olsen, she's going to by no means want to back off here. She looks around the outside at Canada Corner. She's got places to be before she starts backing off into a strategic mindset and takes that 5th place in club class just like that under braking. So as she brings it back on to the road and indeed up the hill, well, right now even Hauptke also gets on through, and well, Steve Carter, they're being robbed blind as they now make their way through and up towards what will be the next set of corners. But the GPX M8 Motorsport driver, we'll see, of course, there's still some time for the distance right now. Indeed, we've only got a couple laps on the board, so many more to come. Tom Cordy versus Robin Noel Brown, meanwhile, and well, Robin Noel Brown goes to the move there and passes Cordy just like that. That'll be for 21st place, but they both go off the road together, and both tries their way to carry a lot more speed than was permissible, and Brian Beardsworth sneaks his way through. But perhaps the bigger question is, can Brandon White take them both? Well, not quite in the 273 car. He takes one, but not both of them, and he moves up into 12th place in the INS class there. Well, how about that? Both drivers pressure each other into an error, and well, in the end, the error helping out the club leader in particular, gains more overall places and gives himself some breathing room compared to the rest of the club class. Speed of which Gareth Newton here looking to attack Jose Martinez as they head down towards turn number 5. As the GPX Sports Z driver stays in the draft as much as possible. Well, right now, he's got to be thinking to himself, here am I going to be able to beat Martinez? Same car, but it could be a very different setup of the car, plus also a different driver in the car. And understandably, you could set the car up here for high downforce, but that means you lose all the speed on the straights, but you gain considerably in the middle sector and through the majority of the corners, which is what I think Newton might be going for, because he wasn't really gaining in the draft too quickly, whereas I think B1 Martinez will have a bit less rear wing on the car. And this is a circuit that's typically associated as being a low to medium downforce circuit, whereby low is the recommendation, but if you think you can get away with it, if you think you're quick enough, you go for a medium downforce setup, so that way you maximise corner speed at the expense of some straight line speed, as that's a fight in front, and that's too wide there between Gianluca Rospo and Seb Becker. Rospo in the bright red Rhino Esports machine, the deep motorsport car makes his way around, and right now hold his ground. Albeit Seb Becker tried to make a move, he can't quite get it stick at the moment, but he's tried his hardest. There is Rhino driver in the Golf Privateer machine, and Rospo just holding on, but both digging in, as we do have an equal flag for René Rosler, and that's Darius picked up earlier on. We'll see if we can get a replay of that when we can, as meanwhile Gareth Newton goes all in for the move there versus Jose Martinez, and well, that's going to give him a 10th place in the club class just like that. Martinez saw it coming and left the door wide open then, and there's no way he can stop it. But with all that, let's come back towards the front, because Mirko Bortolotti has been passed by Tim Perry for second, and Bortolotti right now is under huge pressure here for third place. There's Yannis Albert, Thomas Pugh, Benny Witte, Kai Hitchler, Florian Gooder, all queued up behind here. Yannis Albert says to Bortolotti, no, let me help you, let me bump draft you along the straight. And as they make their way down, we ride on board here with the Quad Dash for Racing Drive. It is BMW being very polite there. Indeed, a different driver will potentially try and force a move on for third place, but not Albert. He decides, no, I want us all together at the front of the field. I don't want us to split. And we're now looking for the move under braking there in towards turn number 6. Albeit the move is just to stay behind as Pugh watches on. And Thomas Pugh owns the fastest lap of this race so far, a 2:01.12. And Albert, meanwhile, I think, just getting himself settled down, the Seychelles driver, as he comes in towards the next braking zone. We're through the left and in towards the right, and of course the only problem with running behind another car is it's great on the straights, you gain speed. In the corners, however, you have dirty air wafting your way, and that takes off some of the front end downforce. These cars are definitely very aero-sensitive compared to their GT3 and more modern counterparts, where they have a lot more aero on the car, albeit very tightly regulated, but they've got a lot more aero. The front splitter in particular being a noticeable difference, as well as the amount of adjustment available on that rear wing. Well, we do see Albert getting a bit close to Bortolotti again. I think this is all just right now. Follow the leader until he feels as though Bortolotti is not offering them a chance to get closer to the top two. As we come back to your leaders of the interclass, meanwhile, it's all happening wherever you look at the boat. Clyde Vella, the GP Audit driver, has the pressure Serena Tahar behind, and well, I can tell you one thing, I don't know what very well qualifying there for Quad Dash Races Tahar, but right now she is absolutely flying in race trim. It's very impressive, I can tell you that. And well, with regards to weather conditions out there, remember we said earlier on the fact that we would head towards midday for the race start, and look at that track temperature. Ambient has stayed relatively the same at 90 degrees centigrade, but track temperature now to 41 degrees centigrade. That is a hot track. Those tyres, they're going to be warmed up very quickly. And some tyre management would not be unkind to them. I think that's going to be the big theme here, which is some drivers might immediately be going to manage their tyres, where others are trying to push on as much as possible before they do end up feeling as though they've pushed them a bit too hard. But we come back to John Ludbrook running 5th in the interclass with Robert Papaya and Max Wheeler behind. Max Wheeler right now, the cover man for the season opening broadcast, round number 1. Of course, his car chosen to be on that. We always do change the car that's on the cover each and every round where possible. And here we be Autosport driver here, just watching as John Ludbrook and Robert Papaya look to go toe to toe. They'll go too wide at least, coming down towards turn number 5. It'll be Papaya on the inside. Meanwhile, it will be Ludbrook on the outside, and the Zambo RP Motorsport Corvette is going to make the move on the inside. Does it get it parked? Yes, it does. So Papaya moves up into 5th place there in the interclass. Come back to Steve Carter, fighting again with Ellen Olsen. We thought this was perhaps over, given the way Olsen was so definitive in the move she made at Canada Corner earlier on, but not quite so. Steve Carter now back with her, albeit both drivers there have dropped. Even Halpco's had a bit of a moment, and we've definitely got a lot of replays now being queued up here. I think we're going to have more time for replays than we are actual racing at this point, although we'll try and give you a bit of a quick auto summary if you want of some of the most contentious moments at the start of the race. In fact, ladies and gents, we are going to start going back in time and finding out some of the big moments from the opening laps. Now, first and foremost, this was Matt Bowers on the open lap as he made his way down towards turn number 5. And the Who driver went to win the brakes and clipped Hugo Robb on the rear. And unfortunately sent both drivers wide there, so we didn't quite catch that. And that's how they came together. So Matt Bowers didn't carry the overspeed, cold tyres and cold brakes, and had to try and get the car stopped. He didn't quite successfully do so. And well, Hugo Robb wasn't too happy about that. Oh, goodness me, a little bit of a bump there. Would you say it was retaliatory? Perhaps not, perhaps a bit of frustration. Oh, and then it definitely went a bit wrong for the drivers just up the road. Now, what on earth happened there? Well, the good news is we can find out about that. Here is a replay of what happened to Ben Slavans. So made his way out the rise, it's number 6, found himself there in a 2 wide, perhaps? No, he didn't. Well, he did find himself, he was turned, car in front had gone around there separately, so Mikhail Salkuni hit Labanc on the back, and in the end it was, I want to say, that was Robbie Noel Brown just getting it on his own volition. So this is what it looked like for Payne Wilkins as he made his way up the hill, found himself there, clear of what was the rejoining car of Bowers, and the full tilt virtual motorsport red BMW driver comes into the scene of it. It's all go wrong, has to pick a side to go, and in an indecisiveness says to him, no, he's going to go into the scene of the incident, and we have a car that biffs him forward a bit. I think that might have been Matt Bowers helping him along there and saying, he can keep going now. But meanwhile, we have Ben Labanc towed to the pit lane as we had this for Gianluca Rospo. As this was Rospo coming down towards turn number 8, and as he did so, battling at the time with Matt Bowers, who looks like the inside. Bowers went all in, locked up the front right, and Gianluca Rospo was sent to the gravel, so he wasn't too happy about that. Then we had this for Mikhail Salkuni at the end of lap number 1. Well, in fact, it wasn't the end, it was into turn number 8 here. So, a lot of woe coming the way of the Rado Esports machines. And this was Salkuni in contact with Steve Carter, I believe, there. Carter getting caught, and while the Gavmax Racing cars collected him, then there was Matthew Massey, and then everyone did get it back together. That's why Salkuni in the end lost out in the lead of the club class and had to pull the car to the side of the road due to damage, and that was his race pretty much said and done. But then we had this for Gavin Corby on lap number 2. And this was Gavin Corby find himself in the thick of the fight for Gavmax Racing into Canada corner. Came on in, carried a bit too hot, collected Craig Tillotson in the process. The two got hooked on each other there and had to let each other go. But perhaps a more positive note, this was an overtake being made by Tim Perry. It was a Mirko Bortolotti. And how did he get this started towards turn number 8? And it was Bortolotti who went deep. And Perry then had to go all the way around the outside to fish for this. So Perry made it count in, and the Ferrari driver making it work just like that as Benny Witte tucked back in behind. So that explains their story. And then we did have what was a bit of a moment for Max Dean on lap number 5. And as we do see there, Max Dean coming on down into the braking zone for turn number 5. On lap 5, went onto the brakes, got that done right, got the power down, and the rear of the car simply said, it's around we go. So sadly for Max Dean, just a bit too eager on that throttle pedal. We also had this for Serena Tahara only moments ago. This on lap number 7. The Quad Dash Racing driver at the time was chasing after what was, well, in fact, had passed Clyde Vella for the lead of the class, and she went very wide there at turn number 1, and it became a 3 wide almost as Flavien Tieffry had a run at the lead here for into class, and Clyde Verlin simply said, okay, beat me on the brakes if you dare, and the Frenchman decided not to dare to dream to do so, and with that we come back to your live racing. So we definitely had a few big battles, and we can only get you a small snippet of the replays, ladies and gentlemen, because there's so much battling going on, and therefore we'll do our best to catch what's happening live as a priority. But as Flavien Tieffry has now taken control of the lead of the race, well, just like that, we've had a change. In fact, Clive Vella now has dropped all the way down to 3rd place in the interclass. And how did that happen? Well, here is a quick replay to fill you in. So this was going down towards turn number 5. Only moments to go on lap number 8. Tieffry on the inside, Vella on the outside. I mean, Serena Tahara just watching from behind. So Tieffry on the inside, went on to the brakes, got it nicely stopped there, and Vella went a bit too wide. And in fact, I think he just echoed whatever Tieffry did there. And Serena Tahara said, well, if you're not going to cover the inside space, I'll just take that off for you, thank you very much. And just like that, the Dutch lady made her way through. Well, how about it? So that's how the top 3 in the interclass have shuffled. But we shuffle away back to the live, and as we do, well, back to the front we go. This is the front overall. And in the elite, not in the elite class, the pro class, goodness me, I'm thinking back to when Mirko Bortolotti raced in the elite class, which is now called pro in season 1. He's giving me flashbacks here, and well, as the Italian makes his way down towards turn number 1, we'll notice one driver who's not letting him go, and Tim Perry for Scuderia GPX. I can tell you one thing, ladies and gentlemen, Tim right now has a little bit of a needle that he definitely wants to try and pull out of his skin, and that is he wants to see if he can beat Bortolotti in that Ferrari. And the reason is, season 1, you may remember Tim Perry being on the grid there for Altitude Freedom Esports at the time, and that being in the Ford GTE. He did have some very impressive performances, but could not find a way to beat Bortolotti in any of the races. Season 2, he was really held at bay by Philip Ansell, the champion in the pro class there, and couldn't find a way to beat Ansell. And right now, Tim Perry has been the driver who's gone the longest in theory, whereby he's challenged the win in all the races he's attended, but he's never won a race in a SimRacing International series, such as the GTE Championship. So Perry right now seems to have a bit of a curse on him that he's wanting to break, and to do it, he's going to be a driver who's not just a very established sim racer, but of course, for those of you not in the know, Mirko Bortolotti Bortolotti, a very established real-life GT3 racer, and indeed an absolute talent behind the wheel. And I believe he doesn't just race GT3s, he races other classes as well, but known very much racing in DTM amongst other GT3 or GT-style championships. As the Gaz Racing team driver makes his way in towards the king, well, Perry's definitely staying with him as Mirko Bortolotti then brings the rest of the field 1.7 seconds behind. But you can see they're bringing Yang Silbert, also top of the view, Benny Witte quite hitched off very gooder, and Christian Ablasser 1.7 seconds adrift. He did have a bit of a moan earlier on. And the Gaz Racing team driver knowing there's a bit more to this than meets the eye as he's got to try and get back together. And Jan Lintz, his teammate, well, they are with each other. And Rock Papai has had a bit of a run wide of the king. He's avoided the barrier just about as he chased after a leader Whitman. They are getting ready to fight over fourth place here, but only 3 seconds up the road is Clyde Vella. And do they want to fight, or would they rather work together here to chase after the top 3 in the interclass? I think the latter would be preferable. We'll have to wait and see whether they can make that preference occur. As further down the order, we come back to your club drivers. Here is Gareth Newton, potentially lined up a move, and Gianluca Rosmo. As he comes in towards the king, we ride aboard here. We have 1-2-4 driver. Not the fastest, but definitely getting quicker as Newton as the season goes on. His talents are definitely showing as he looks to make his way to the braking zone here. Looking one way to the other, not quite working. Rolls his way through the corner. And Rosbo, meanwhile, just simply holds his line and says, no, but stick to your guns. And that way Newton's not going to find a way through. But Newton definitely looking the faster driver here. The slipstream helps him. Just in general, he seems to have about a 5% edge as they make their way out of turn 14. But they're taking such a tight exit line then. A bit sensitive on the throttle. I think that might be with the downforces being stripped off the front of the car with the dirty air. Well, Newton makes his way along the start-finish straight. Gap coming down, little by little, coming down by, what is the best part there? 300ths a second. And, well, now only 1.5 tenths behind. Does he look for the move? No, he doesn't. As meanwhile, Nathan Healy comes blazing up the inside there. Oh, goodness me, Nathan. Do that again. You'll give me a heart attack. And Nathan Healy with an overspeed there in that Ford GTE, and just like that, it appears on your screen. And now coming in towards the braking zone there for turn number 3. And right now, well, Mark Kent said earlier on that Srinath Tahar pickpocketed Clyde for what was that battle for second place in the interclass. Well, Nathan Healy there has decided to one-up that statement, Pete Mark, and he's decided to pickpocket both of them there. And could this be robbery of the season? Somebody call the police, because right now, Nathan Healy is absolutely making a double steal. But it doesn't stop between Newton and Rosbo, meanwhile. Rosbo on the inside, Newton on the outside here coming through. And it's almost as if Nathan Healy was never there. He was just a ghost. But Newton makes his way a little bit too wide there, coming out to turn the 5 up towards 6. And Rosbo's on the inside. Does he outbrake himself? He does a little bit, but he slides deep, and he catches it just in the nick of time. The deep motorsport driver comes on back just like that. But as we do look a little bit further back there, we do, as he said, Becca just Payne Wilkins fighting overall position only. Rebecca being a club driver versus Payne Wilkins, who's an inter driver, and Payne Wilkins makes way for over 40th place overall. But still, some battles wherever you look. That's what we love to see here at Road America. There's all the guys coming around. We come back to the front of the field, and Mirko Bortolotti and Tim Perry. This can be a change in overall lead, and it is Perry who moves ahead. However, whilst we maybe celebrate, I think down the pit lane you'll definitely hear a big cheer go for Scuderia GPX, and particularly for Perry's side of the garage. Well, you've also got to bear in mind this could be strategy for Bortolotti. What you might be thinking right now is, okay, Tim, you want the lead so badly, let me give it to you, and I'll sit behind you now and save my tyres and save my fuel for later in the race. And that's the thing that Perry's now got to see what he can do. Now the shoe's on the other foot. How does he now manage this race? Does he potentially back the pace off a little bit to save some fuel by lifting and coasting and try to back the whole field into Mirko Bortolotti and Benny Witte, who are 2 seconds behind? Well, as they make the one around, I have to see whether that's going to be the game plan or not, as we do have a new interleader as well. Or do we? Because Srinath Tahar took it over for a brief moment, and Flavien Tieffry takes it back. As Clyde Vella right now, he's got the popcorn bucket seat view, and he just watches on as our lead battles, wherever you look at the classes right now, are absolutely raging on here at Road America. And Flavien Tieffry comes through at turn number 6, absolutely smooth as butter. Srinath Tahar is following very closely, and this is the battle we wanted to see at Fuji. We saw, if you're curious by the way, the average lap delta in clear air between Tieffry, Tahar and Kemp was less than 200ths between the drivers when you had their clean laps and laps that were not impeded by the drivers. And right now you are seeing Tieffry and Tahar together, with Oliver Kemp not able to take part in this race due to a technical issue with the car it would seem in the pit lane. Well, it does mean that right now, well, Tahar and Tieffry are giving us what we missed at Fuji, and what a treat this is. And don't rule out Clyde Vella. He's 7-10 fine at the moment, but I suspect, if I know Clyde well, he has been told over the radio by GPX's Onyx, take it easy, Clyde. This is a long race. They will come back to us later on with the way they're pushing. So, to play for on the podium of the interclass at the moment. As meanwhile, leader Whitman and Max Wheeler continue to fight over 5th in class. Robert Papaya has been allowed to break away a little bit. It's looking very safe as he does so. Still a Whitman there for Full Validity TV Racing, a part of the established outfit. And well, she rolls away through the corner, the German VTuber. Well, I do believe right now with the pressure of Max Wheeler here, not something she's going to appreciate, albeit it's the battle of the two American marks, Ford versus Corvette. And right now, the battle of the EcoBoost engine versus the classic V8. And well, the EcoBoost machine here is going to find that whilst it's got straight line speed, it hasn't got the draft. That's something that Wheeler has, but will he be able to go for the move under braking? He does. Whitman there doesn't fight it too hard, and the LVP Autosport driver sneaks his way through and well, moves up into 5th place. But Whitman, I think, will be playing it passive and want to work with Wheeler for a little bit to see if they can creep forward towards Papai, who's setting personal best, at least last time around. Meanwhile, John Lubrock and Robbie Noel Brown, they have an exchange there. The two drivers of GPX Supersport, albeit two sister teams, and Lubrock's allowed to go past Noel Brown, but I suspect there's also a bit of a rivalry between them, as Jan Pevelchek follows them. And the 2nd place club driver, and well, he's trying to find a way to catch up to Brian Beardsworth, who is the best part of, I do believe, unless I'm mistaken, the best part of 6 seconds up the road. But if there's not a battle for the club lead raging on, there's plenty of places in club that are being fought over, including still the fight for 6th place in club with Gianluca Rosberg and Gareth Newton together, and Andy Rooney. He started from the back of the field, the full tilt virtual motorsport red driver, and right now the 1-2-1 try is making a lot of progress. As meanwhile, here's side by side, Credis Vazkevicius versus Steve Carter. Holds it, who's that into the barrier? And well, the GPX is sent on car, John Lubrock. You can't park there, John. I think the team are going to be saying, and well, he's somehow been sent on the round, where it's his own volition a lot, decides to hit the barrier again out of frustration, and then says, right, I'll tow it to the pit lane. But what happened to John Lubrock? And this was coming down into that braking zone. Behind him at the time was the BMW of Robbie Noel Brown, who went to the inside. Lubrock goes to turn in, then Noel Brown's to the inside, and Lubrock just gets it wrong of his own volition, and then has to throw the car off of the racing line as quickly as he could, but unfortunately did it a bit too soon, hits the tyre barrier, and then probably got the call to say he's now given himself significant suspension damage. A bit of frustrating ends that stint of the race there for John Lubrock, and I think his race is over, sadly. I think we're not going to be seeing him back on the grid, given he is out of the car, unless the team can get it repaired. But if you come back to Ellen Olsen, well, she's definitely made sure to build a bit of a bridge of a gap to Corolis Vazkevicius, so she's up into 3rd in club. Still needs to chase down Jan Pevelchek and Brian Beardsworth, but still, we're not even half an hour into this race, and also already doing a very quick job there as Vazkevicius goes wide at Canada Bend. We see the aftermath of Steve Carter makes his way through into 4th place in club, and well, the German driver here coming back strong. Carter, of course, had that instant a little bit earlier on. We did lose out versus Olsen and Vazkevicius, but right now, he's getting himself right back in the hunt for this as he makes his way down the start-finish straight. And Carter here will, of course, be now feeling the return pressure of Vazkevicius, who's going to pull out of the draft there. Okay, Vazkevicius get it, parked on the brakes here. Here they go, in towards turn of 1, and it is going to the Britain all on the inside, stamps on the brakes, and get that done just in the nick of time. Lovely bit of work there from your privateer, and retakes the 4th place in club class now. But these two swapping back and forth as Andy Rooney looks to try and power his way past. Here's Svedra, as she's just done so, versus what be even Hauptke, and they fight over 9th place in club. But Svedra, the Inter driver, will most likely there try to just work with them to continue to move forward. As they all make their way through the corners. Meanwhile, we come back to the lead of the Interclass because Flavin Tiefri and Serena Tahar are still fighting each other out there. This battle is not over yet, I can tell you that. And well, the last time it changed places on lap number 11. With Tiefri, as we saw, getting back ahead of Serena Tahar after Tahar passed Tiefri on lap number 10. We didn't quite catch that on camera. I don't think we're going to be getting a replay of that anytime soon. However, we can see live right now that these two absolutely fighting tooth and nail here. But who's with the first one who is going to suck the bitter pill, which is to stay in 2nd and think more about strategy? I think neither driver wants to. They both want track position, but somebody's got to take it and somebody can't have it. That's the only problem. Otherwise, you'd have a dead heat. That's meanwhile, we come back to the front of the field, the very front, and that's Tim Perry still leading this race of Scuderia GPX, and he's only 2 tenths ahead of Mirko Bortolotti as they make the way through the opening quarter for the 14th time of asking. Now, as Bortolotti comes on down, well, the only problem he's got at this point is that still a lot more to be found between them. They roll the way through the bend, and the Scuderia GPX driver knows that he's definitely losing out here with the options on the fuel saving. But does he worry about that? Does he go for broke here? Well, when you've got Mirko Bortolotti behind, you do need to consider every option. It's not going to be the case that you can simply outpower Bortolotti. Indeed, he is inevitable, some would say, with regards to the fact he'll always be towards the front of the field if things are going his way. Well, as Benny Witte follows, 4 seconds behind. He's definitely opened up a bit of a gap there to Jonas Albert. 1.5 seconds now. And in fact, I think we have seen a move for Witte only a lap or two ago. And that was for 3rd place versus Mirko Bortolotti. And this is how it happened. So this was Witte looking for the move at the time. He was in towards Canada Bend 2 laps ago. Went all in for the move. On the brakes on the inside, got it absolutely stopped just like that, and then Jonas Albert, well, he had to try and get involved as well. In fact, this actually got a little bit tasty as they made the way up the rise, and Albert in the end tried to go through, but it was too wide there between Bortolotti and also the SimRacing car of none other than what was Thomas Pugh. But what did Pugh do wrong? I think it's the big question that we want an answer to, and here's a replay to explain. Because then it was all changed later on, lap 13. This was Pugh at the time, still keeping both Albert and also Bortolotti behind. In towards turn number 7, turn number 6, he went, and the rear just stepped loose. And for Thomas Pugh into the gravel trap, and had to very quickly bring himself back on, but not without falling all the way to the back end of the top 10 in both pro and overall. So Pugh now down to 10th place and has got to get himself regrouped, regathered, and back on the train. If he can catch it. But as we come back to your live racing, that fills in there. Well, we've seen a bit of a change. Actually, mind that Kai Hitchler right now, and an Eleventh sports driver, and I say this as a compliment to be fair, he has really come along. If you remember, when he joined the grid in Season 1 in the Elite Class, it was 9 at the time, really, he and the Leopard Esports team, they were chasing what were the scraps of the points towards the back end of the top 15 of the class. In Season 2, we've seen some moments of brilliance from both him and his teammate. Although the teammate's name escapes me at the moment, I do apologise for that there. Sometimes names do slip out of my brain, and well, we're going to see if we can find that teammate's name very shortly. But the point being that the Leopard Esports team definitely, Ben Luca Eckel, that's the name I'm thinking of there. And well, we could always never forget about Ben Luca. Well, the Leopard Esports team are typically been trying to push towards the top 10, but right now, running 9th, similar pace to everyone in front of him. If he can get into that slipstream train, I think Hitchler is definitely going to be a force to be reckoned with. It's all gradually coming together, and it's great to see that progression. As all he tries to roll the way through. Meanwhile, we're at Popeye there at the inside of Clyde Vella. So he decides to go for the move, gets it done just like that. Vella falls to 4th place in Inter. Popeye is now moving up. As he does so, he is currently the fastest Inter driver inside that top 10. And I think the RP Motorsport driver, well, sans moustache on that car compared to his teammate's car. Well, right now, he is absolutely going for it here. I think his game plan is, if TF3 and Tar are going to fight, I need to be in that fight as soon as humanly possible. Even if it costs me a load of fuel, I want to get there. And we do know that Robert's Corvette is running a little bit more pace through the corners compared to the straights. And so his thought process is going to be, if I can make a break through the middle sector, I might just be able to storm away and go hunting. The only thing is, of course, he loses out on the straight. It will cost him time, particularly if everyone's trying to work in a bit of a draft train. Whether that's a daft draft or not, well, a bit further back, 3 seconds adrift. There's Max Wheeler, who has dropped Alina Whitman quite recently. There's Whitman a bit further behind, as she finds herself caught up behind the car there of Kronos Verskevicius. And well, now she puts a lap there on the club driver, who's recently been into the pit lane, albeit Whitman outbrakes herself there into Canada Corner, goes to gravel, easy mistake to make, and unfortunately, a frustrated one to recover from. And suddenly, she now has what is the rising charge there, Stefan Gambi's car, albeit a lap down, as the privateer there in the Porsche makes his way through. And then you do have Kevin Smith, the man, of course, who definitely found himself bruised, beaten, and knocked around at the start. Oh! And Smith to the rear of Gambi's car and gets him rolled there coming out the corner and both sideways. Smith pretty much almost wiping out our camera there. Perched at what is the run out of the final corner, and the Roller Esports car gets plenty of camera time, but not good camera time, I can tell you, as he gets it back together. What on earth happened there? All the good news is we can get an immediate replay. So this was coming through the final bend. Let's listen in. And got the power down there and will hit the rear of the car that Stefan Gambi. It almost got caught onto Gambi's car, and I think once he got caught with it, they got hooked and he couldn't separate himself. And well, that was the problem with the 272 driver, and Gambi in the end forced to tow to the pit lane. Smith carried on, not the way he wanted it to go there. I think Smith misanticipated how quick Gambi would be coming out the corner. Innocent mistake, to be fair. We could all do it when we were catching up to a driver who's a lap down on us, but after that, a bit of an oddball moment there, and the two cars almost getting entwined in each other. But sadly for Smith, it's definitely sent him further down the order he'd like to be, now down to 10th for the interclass, 21st overall, and now the car's got plenty of front end damage to worry about. But as he worries about that, we come back to the front of the interclass here. Serena Tahar and Flavin Tiefri still all together as they come round for turns 9 and 10. The Dash racing driver, well, still hold off TF3, but something tells me that Flavian TF3 has now decided, okay, so either you've won on track at least, so now I'm going to beat you on strategy instead. These guys come through. Rock by meanwhile. Clyde Vella just there as well, and they all closed up the top four in the interclass. And it's going to be interesting to see where exactly Papaya and Vella could squeeze themselves into that fight as they get ready to head in towards another lap. But as they do, let's come all the way back up to the pro class. And here we see Florian Gooder currently running in 5th place, ahead of Mirko Bortolotti, Christian Ablasser and Jan Lintz. And then we do have quite a hitch, still 2 seconds behind. You see with the rear of the picture. And the point being for these drivers, as they rolled away through turn number 1, is right now, it does seem as though they're all pushing each other to the limits, but also thinking of just as much strategically in this race. And that strategy could definitely see them even get back into the fight for, say, 3rd versus Benny Witte. As Gooder just goes a little bit wider corner, and we'll be exploring those track limits, and those limits will find him in turn. Albeit it's not worth just simply staying within the limits. Sometimes you've got to push it to know exactly where your limits are. They do have quite a few instant points they could use in these races. We're not too many, it should be pointed out, and therefore it's more tactical off tracks if that. As we do look to John Becker, who we haven't talked about, the other member of Sudsport Racing in the interclass alongside Flavian TF3. Well, perhaps he doesn't have the glamour of batting for the lead of the class for a podium spot right now, but he does have the glamour of chasing after Tom Cordy as he bolts his way down the 2nd straight. And, well, getting ready to potentially make a move here as Cordy goes defensive in the middle of the road. Becker, meanwhile, looking to the inside. That's not going to work. And instead, just holds his ground as they come through the left-hander. But Becker definitely eager to try and make a bit of an impression. As Tom Cordy just simply says, you know what, I'll hold my line and make you do all the hard work instead. And I'll lead the Whitman up the road. Well, she's got the comfort of what is Carola Seskevicius as a lap-down car between her and these two. Good spot there for Mark Kent, saying it did seem as though Stefan Gavi didn't get the power down for some reason in relation to the incident with Kevin Smith. The only other thing I can think of, perhaps he had a bit of a wobble out the corner and thought, you know what, I'll lift off the power as a result and let Smith pass me and lap me. But I think there might have been a misunderstanding between the drivers. So therefore, we'll leave that one to the steward should it get reported. I'm sure they'll be able to take a detailed examination of it, as meanwhile, we don't have all the data they do. They have telemetry, they have more camera angles, you name it, they have got it. But meanwhile, as we do see there, Vaskevicius going a bit wide at the kink. Well, now this is going to be a bit awkward for Tom Cordy because he wants to go to the inside. He will get the inside. That's going to help out to a degree versus John Becker. Becker, meanwhile, is not quite able to make it free abreast there. Not that I think he'd want to at this point of the race. And, well, they stay as they were 7th and 8th in Inter. Cordy ahead of Becker. The fight rages on. But up to the front, onto lap 18 we go. And Tim Perry and Mirko Bortolotti still together. But the gap now, 5.6 seconds to Benny Witte. And here is Witte, meanwhile, make his way out to turn number 3. Bring with him Yannis Albert, as right now the Reptile Racing driver, running, I do believe, the Michael Schumacher tribute livery helmet from his Mercedes GP days. So that would have been none other than 2010 through to 2013. Well, right now, Yannis Albert goes to the inside here and says, well, I don't care about the helmet, I'm just going to simply take the place instead. And the Quad Dash Racing driver does so. And well, lovely move there, but Witte saw it coming and said, you know what, I'll play it passive instead, I won't fight it too hard. We'll do the fighting later on. These two definitely eyed each other up here with a raised eyebrow and getting ready for the next part of their encounter. As you see, Mirko Bortolotti still bringing Ablasser, Lintz and Gooder to the play. And very little between the quartet at the moment, but I think they're all cognizant of the fact that fight each other would only cost them time to those ahead. But let's go back to your club class drivers. Here's Jan Pavlicek, still chasing after Robin Noel Brown and into driver. But he wants to pass Noel Brown, if not at least use him as a slipstream, because he wants to get a bit more time between himself and Ellen Olsen. The lap times, it should be pointed out, Olsen that last lap was 16 hundredths faster compared to Pavlicek. And here is Olsen as she makes her way very deep there in towards turn 5. But let's try and Hoffman go in the process, so it's not all bad. But understand, we don't be making mistakes like that too often because it's only going to cost you time. As we see our drivers make their way on through. Well, meanwhile, we do look back to Steve Carter and the privateer here with Gareth Newton a long way behind, the best part of 4 seconds behind. There is Gareth Newton for comparison. We're looking at quite safe and in the dry. But we have a black flag, and that will be for Matt Bowers. And Matt Bowers, unfortunately, has picked up a drive-through penalty, and that will be for instant points. It's not quite worked out. And as he makes way on through, these drivers definitely right now. Oh, goodness me, that's Kevin Smith going around again. And well, for the Rhino Esports driver, that's not the way he wants it to go. And right now to the barrier once more, as Jordan Butler's also in for a black flag drive-through penalty. That's going to be, I believe, for instant points. And well, now 2 drivers for that. Also wounded Kevin Smith being even more wounded. Well, some drivers definitely not having things go their way whatsoever as it interrupts our train of thought. Well, the Rhino Esports driver definitely having the worst luck at this time as Matthew Massey passes a rejoin instead. Becker, and right now in 13th there in the club class and the privateer in the 189 BMW. Will definitely trying to pick up the pieces that were lost earlier on after pitting on lap number 2 for repair work in the car. He will have another pit stop to make later on, and that pit stop will of course be his mandated fuel stop, and also with the question of changing tyres or not. Matt Butler still trying to pick his way through more places, but will he deflect to the pit lane? The answer is no, not this time. If they get a black flag drive-through penalty, they have 3 laps beyond the one in which it's awarded to serve it, otherwise it's automatically upgraded to a disqualification from the race. And then the exception is if it is towards the end of the race and the race will be deemed finished by the time you cross line and haven't served the penalty before it gets upgraded to a disqualification, it will be added to your post-race time as a time penalty, but it is typically a slightly longer time penalty than you would otherwise have to serve through the drive-through. And given the length of the pit lane at Road America and how long you are on the limiter, I suspect the time loss is going to be somewhere in the region of a minute if you take it as a post-race time penalty, compared to what would be around about 50 seconds if you take it as a mid-race penalty, or as the actual drive-through, if you will. But Matt Burrs will have to make the conscious decision of whether he wants to take it or not as he comes in towards turn number 5. We'll come back to Tim Perry and Mirko Bortolotti from Bowers, who definitely was looking to fight to the front of the field, but finds himself almost now half a lap down. Well, Perry and Bortolotti go on to lap number 20, still carrying on. And both drivers here pushing each other as much as possible, as we do see Ayana Silbert now 6 seconds behind with Benny Witte there. Remember, these two did swap places, and it was Silbert who made a very easy pass versus Witte, who was a bit more passive in his defence. You can see there Rinko Jornowski, meanwhile, a little bit sideways coming out to turn number 1, having to get the car back together as Jan Lintz decides to flash a bit of a look to his fellow GazX Racing driver, but we should point out that once you do have 3 GazX drivers all in succession, they're all part of different teams. So therefore, whilst they will want to try and help each other, they've also got to be mindful of their own Drivers' Championship for results and also their individual teams championship results. And they would like to make it a GazX 1, 2, 3, but all the GazX teams would like to be one step ahead of the other if they can. As Florian Gooder continues to just watch on behind, the fly in the ointment here really, as we ride on board with the full Valenti V Racing driver. And of course, it will be a bit odd here in the fact 2 Corvettes in front, then a BMW, and well, Gooder being in the Porsche. Well, it's a car variety and it's maximum. We know this Porsche is the king of low-speed corners. These hairpins will have the better traction over the rear tyres, as Porsche definitely known for with regards to its machines. Although this Porsche, of course, the odd one out of all the modern GT Porsches because it is mid-engine rear-wheel drive, whereas typically the Porsche 911s or 992s that are now known running, of course, what would be rear-engine rear-wheel drive drivetrain, but Porsche moving the engine to being behind the drive but ahead of the rear axle in order to improve the aerodynamic stability of the car. They found it to be the optimum way of setting up the car based on the FIA World Endurance Championship regulations and the stipulations on aerodynamics back in 2015 through to 2018. That's what led to the decision to move the engine. We have met international uproar when it happened. Indeed, many said, have Porsche lost their mind? Well, not quite, given the number of victories the Porsche 911 RSR has gone on to take in its history. As Gooder continues to watch on, he hasn't lost his mind either, as right now he continues to sniff the slipstream of the cars in front. Back to Max Wheeler, meanwhile, still chasing after Clyde Vella and Rob Papai, but they now sit 5.5 seconds behind Flavien Tiafri. So we are seeing Papai definitely getting his head down here and past Clyde Vella on lap number 20. And a quick look back at that replay. And this was Rob Papai, of course, making the move all the way down towards turn number 5. Savella had got back ahead 2 laps before, and then Papai said, no, I'll take that back, thank you very much. And straight up the inside there, and Clyde Vella didn't have the opportunity to turn in, didn't have the opportunity to go for the switchback. It was neither, and just had to settle for it instead. Come back to your live racing. And as we do, there's definitely been a bit of drama for some drivers out there. We are starting to see a few more pit stops play out. Strategic pit stops, we should clarify. Andy Rooney's made one. There he is on camera. A lap down to the drivers we were looking at. The full tilt virtual motorsport red driver. Well, no, he's not necessarily a lap down on strategy. Pitted on lap number 19. A 40.65 second stops. We suspect that's fuel. And also at least a couple of tyres being changed, if not all of them. Otherwise, the majority of pit stops yet to come. We've seen a lot of drivers go for a bit of an overcut here rather than the undercut. Now, in theory, what is the better strategy to go for? We are not quite halfway through the race, we should also clarify, but your undercut window of fuel is getting ready to close. Now, given the fact you're at a circuit which is all about straight line speed and indeed power, you want the car to be as light as possible. So I think everyone is going to go the longest they can before they pit, unless they really think they've got a golden opportunity to undercut somebody immediately in front of them, just because going around this circuit with a heavier car, you are losing time in terms of temps on the straights and in those braking zones compared to what you may lose at, say, Fuji, the more technical circuit. And well, that's where our drivers definitely will be a bit frustrated. Also, nobody wants to lose the slipstream of the car they've got in front of them if they can help them save fuel and gain more lap time. So that's always a consideration as well. Flavin TF3 keeps her in the tire at bay for a little bit longer. These two still watching each other. And well, Katie Eames there, and also Mark Kent, both saying not good time for Kev, and that he seems to have found the bad luck of what was Mark Kent from Spa-Francorchamps last season. And indeed, Mark Kent had taken the lead twice in that race, albeit that was a race which was with mixed conditions, and in those mixed conditions definitely throwing a few drivers off their balance. And well, Kevin Smith definitely thinks so he's off balance today. We do come back to Mirko Bortolotti and Florian Guder. Bortolotti has actually lost out there compared to Christian Ablasser and Jan Lins. I believe he's had an off track at the start of the previous lap. And can we get a replay of that? I think we can. Here we go for a trip back in time. So this was Bortolotti making his way through Canada corner, going through the right-hander. One drive had gone off the road already. Oh, goodness me. And in the end, he caught up to the back of the golf delivery machine, and Bortolotti tried to go around the outside and then decided to go a bit too late there, went very wide. They all survived, it should be clarified, but unfortunately, not the right call there. And Bortolotti losing out versus Gazek's teammates, but not to the TV racing machine of Florian Guder as we come back to live racing. As we do, Bortolotti there definitely having a moment where everything could have flashed before his eyes as Matthew Massey has just come into the pits and served what is his one and only strategic pit stop for the day. And of course he has made, I do believe, 2 trips to the pit lane, and well, just leaving the pits. He has come out of his pit stall. Says Becker doing the same. Becker, unfortunately, the driver who did get caught up in that moment with none other than what was Mirko Bortolotti moments ago. But as he carries on down, more drivers continue to roar the way around. Let's come back to the club class and talk what's going on there, because we haven't really talked about it recently. And Brian Beardsworth still leading this race, and that gap standing at a grand total of 8 seconds at the moment versus Jan Pavlicek. And I should apologise there because I've been referring to him as Jan Pavlicek when actually I do believe the pronunciation is Jan Pavlicek as he makes way on through. And well, for the Czechia driver, I'll definitely try and make sure I get that right in the future. Indeed, I think I got it right in round number 1's broadcast, but then my brain has decided to lead me astray. But enough about me, more about our driver. And the important thing is that right now he is managing that pace quite well versus Ellen Olsen, as Olsen sits in third, 6.5 seconds behind. There she is, Dwayne Hoffman right behind, and of course I think both of them will be on the radio to each other because Flair TV Racing and Full Tilt Virtual Motorsport sister teams to each other, and I think both of them are trying to work out a bit of strategy and also perhaps helping each other save some fuel. Dwayne Hoffman being there means that Steve Carter has got to try and make his way past. He runs fourth in club, and well, he's still got the 2 seconds to close down to Olsen, but also a 4.5 second gap to Gareth Newton, who has gradually dropped to Gianluca Rospo. So the battles in the club class, the class that was definitely fiery earlier on, has now spread out a little bit, and those battles have gone awry, although they will come back to us later on most likely. Indeed, the closest class out there at the moment is your pro class, with Tim Perry still leading ahead of Bortolotti, but this is not a lead you necessarily want. This is the Poison Chalice lead in the pro class because, yes, Perry is leading. He had been following Bortolotti for the best part of 10 to 11 laps, and then Bortolotti decided, so you know what, I'll give you the lead instead and let you be the one who has to use the fuel and set the pace. But I think Perry right now, as much as he'd like to back Bortolotti into other drivers such as Yannis Aubert, I don't think it's going to work out. Again, the pace of these two is the best part of 4 tenths a lap quicker on average compared to those who are following them. Perry's putting some very impressive laps together right now. Both are. They're really giving it everything here. And Perry, I think, will be eager to just see if he can somehow magic that win from under the nose of Bortolotti. It's going to be so difficult to achieve. Because Bortolotti right now is building himself an absolute stacked deck of cards there, or advantages. No, he has got the pace advantage based on qualifying. He's now going to at least have parity with regards to fuel and tyre saving versus Perry, if what we're seeing is to be believed. But of course, remember, 2 very different machines, and Perry in the Ferrari, arguably the quicker car on 1 lap pace in the hands of equal drivers. But the problem is it has a much narrower operating window, although it is a lot wider than it used to be. But that Ferrari, when the tyres start to go off, it really starts to feel tyre wear compared to the BMW. The BMW conversely, of course, has better comfort over curbs, and we do have some curbs which can be abused by the BMW here, including, of course, the Apex at the King. Bortolotti right now We're keeping all those assets in hand and just seeing where the twist in the tail will come. As meanwhile, well, here's perhaps the big twist that we were looking for in a pro. Florian Gooder comes into the pit lane from at the time 8th in class, decides to let go the quartet pack of Ablasser, Linz, Jornowski and himself, and Florian instead makes his way down the pit lane and will shortly will be coming to a stop, but where will this put them in relation to the rest of the field? That is the question. As John Becker, meanwhile, chased after Alina Witte, still fighting the 6th place here in the interclass on the road. And Tom Cordy 8/10 behind. The LVP Autosport Trials definitely had a race that's gone up down the round. But speaking of things going up down the round, it's all gone wrong for Nathan Healy. There he is recovering the Ford GT for FTVM Purple. But what exactly is to happen there is the question. And the answer is, here's a replay. So this was your Ford GT driver from Ireland going in towards turn number 8. As he did so there, tried to get the power down, the rear step loose, and just like you can see, the brakes went on quite late into the corner. I think that unsettled the rear of the car, and in the end when he tried to get the brakes back on to settle the car down, the car was already too far gone, and Healy definitely had to quickly turn things around and get back racing. But he's lost places to it for what is Ivan Hauptke, and Ivan Hauptke I should say, and also Jesse Payne Wilkins, but the most important one will be Hauptke, given that has cost him what is 7th place in club, and he lost the place as well to Jose Martinez, so he's lost 8th in club as well, albeit right behind Martinez. You can see there on camera as they make the way up the rise, but not so Healy on the road at least. He decides to come into the pit lane. And there's Max Dean, meanwhile, still trying to do a bit of battling there, as I think, in fact, he's got a bit wide at Canada Corner, and Craig Tillotson takes the place back. And Tillotson right now, proudly flying the flag for Rhino Esports in the blue car. The 134 driver definitely is trying to make amends for a difficult start for both him and Kevin Smith in this race. Albeit in terms of where Kevin Smith is at the moment, he is still out there or not. In fact, I don't believe we have Kevin Smith racing anymore in this one. I think we have lost him from this race, and we have got quite a list of retirees. In fact, to put you in the frame, we have lost so far out of our 50 starters. It was a non-start for Oliver Kemp, and then we have lost Ben Slabance, Gavin Corby, Renee Rossler, Hugo Robb, John Lubrook, Stephen Gamby, Jordan Butler, Kevin Smith, and most recently, here's a severe, just we're down to 40 runners still remaining. A black flag for Max Dean for instant points, so he's got a drive-through penalty to serve. Not good news for him, as meanwhile, driving his way down the pit lane to go to his pit stop, Kai Hitchler here, and can he find a way to bring himself a bit closer to Florian Gooder, who was trying to chase after before the pit stop, whereas Gooder just simply outpaced him on strategy and on the road. Well, here is Gooder making the way out of the kink and getting ready for Canada Corner very shortly. Behind him is Gareth Newton, who has yet to pit, so that's a bit less of a worry perhaps. Well, right now, Gooder still got to get a good run through these corners. He's going to make sure that he doesn't lose out versus Hitchler. But heading up the rise, and well, Gooder has taken the fuel. I do believe only changed 2 tyres. And if I had to guess, it would be most likely the left-hand side tyres on that car have been changed, nothing more. As Kai Hitchler, meanwhile, decides only to take fuel. So there's a difference in strategy. And Hitchler will move back ahead of Florian Gooder, as we'll see Gooder there in the rear of the picture, coming over the rise shortly. In fact, you won't, because that was Ellen Olsen's car coming over the rise. And then here's Florian Gooder, but that gap has swung now in the favour of Hitchler with the distance of the best part of 10 seconds. The only thing is, of course, that Hitchler has a car now that will, in theory, have much less pace available to it than would be if it had changed tyres, whereas Florian Gooder has 2 fresh tyres on the left-hand side of the car and has gone for the halfway pit stop with what could be a car now that will be rapid enough through the corners, but all the time is made and lost. Such as the kink, such as the carousel, and also Canada Corner. Let's wait and see if that's the way it's going to be. But no other pit stops really coming from our top 20 at this time. Flavin Tiefri versus Serena Tahar. The gap has opened up. It's now 1.5 seconds. And between the two of them there is none other than Dwayne Hoffman. As they make the way through and up towards turn number 14. Well, Craig Tillotson, meanwhile, into the pits. And Max Dean as well. But for Max Dean, sadly, this is not a trip to the pits he wanted to make, because this will be a drive-through penalty. So he comes in, and I think he wanted to go to his pit stall and then realised that in the 11th hour, actually he needs to get rid of the drive-through, so he's going to have to come back through again. So a double dose of pit stop there, or a double dose of pit lane, but not the dosage he wants. Meanwhile, we come back to Alina Whitman, And John Becker, these two are fighting as we look back from the rear of the 234 GT. Before Valenti V Racing, she's running 6th in the IMSA class still. And Becker and Cordy following. But Becker, from what have been his intentions to get past on the road, well, I think his intentions now have definitely changed into making it happen on strategy. But we can't be too far away from seeing a mass exodus to the pit lane for several drivers. In fact, we've only got 38 minutes to go, so we are over the halfway point. And I suspect we will see all those pit stops within the next 15 minutes. Understandably, a lot of drivers will not want to come in until the rest of the field starts to come in. It really will be blink first and then they'll all pile in. But all these drivers right now definitely trying to maximise those fuel tanks as much as they can. As John Becker gets a better run there out of turn number 3. And does the Supersport Racing driver go for it? No, he does not. So he just waits a little bit longer. Coming back to the front of the field, Tim Perry and Mirko Bortolotti. Well, this is not comfortable for Perry. Bortolotti 1 tenth behind here as he heads up towards Canada Corner, and he is catching up to Brandon White, a car who's going to be a driver, I should say, who's going to put a lap down in his car shortly. And Perry catches him at a bit of an inopportune moment here, which will be rolling the way all the way through the back end chicane. And now in towards turn number 14, and the Gazix Racing Team driver again just taking it peaceful. No, I think that is still going to be his game plan here. We do see Brandon White decide to step wide and will take to the grass there. Good awareness for him to do so. Well, they didn't have to be fair, but I think show as much respect as possible to the overall leaders. And if we head down the straight, let's listen in a little bit. A huge lift and coast there. The best part of around about 75 to 80 metres from where you'd normally go onto the brakes. Bortolotti right now definitely saving fuel as much as possible. Also worth noting, a couple of very minor short shifts earlier on towards the end of that previous lap. Hold up a second. Who's that going very wide there at turn number 3? Somebody's not made a corner. Is that Sarah Becker who's gone so wide? It is. Becker's gone straight on there at turn number 3. What on earth has happened there to the privateer? Let's take a quick look back. So Becker making his way on 3. Would have had a yellow flag, not yellow flags, blue flags getting ready to wait for him. But I think here he's just completely outbroken himself. Indeed he has. He's missed the braking zone and decided rather than try to pull the car through the corner and spin it, instead just simply let it go to the grass and then just ease it down and then get it turned. So a good decisive decision there from Sarah Becker. But definitely a mistake under braking as well. That's proven quite costly. As all the drivers come through, we look back to Jan Lintz, back on your live pictures. And the AR team at Gazix driver right now, the Chilean star, who still has Mirko Bortolotti with him. Christian Ablasser in front of him, so finds himself right in the midst of what is a Gazix sandwich with Gazix filling as well. Well, at that point, if you put 3 pieces of bread together, does that become a bread sandwich? Answers in the YouTube chat, please. Although I have heard the sandwich is a toast sandwich there, and indeed, I think there is actually historically such a thing as a toast sandwich. And well, if you're curious, it is exactly how it sounds with regards to 2 pieces of bread, and in the middle it is a slice of toasted bread. Indeed, it was considered to be one of the recipes for the impoverished many a year ago, not back in medieval times, but back, I believe, in the Victorian era. In Victorian cookbooks, it used to be all in there. But meanwhile, let's focus on what's going here. Indeed, we've not got Victorian era racing, otherwise it would be racing horses, not cars. Although, to be fair, plenty of horsepower on display here. And right now, Mirko Bortolotti still glued to the back of Jan Lintz. We're struggling a little bit now towards the end of this opening stint. And making their way up towards the time line. I think Lintz is just starting to fit the wall with regards to that Corvette, which is a bit interesting, because we typically associate the Corvette in GTE based on the balance points of being the strategy car, the car that can go the longest on its tyres, or at least the car that's got the greatest potential to save its tyres. But if anything, right now Jan Lintz does seem to be struggling, but he has had a couple of little mistakes earlier on. I think those haven't helped the condition of his compound. As we are Max Wheeler into the pit lane then, so he decides enough's enough. John Becker and Tom Cordy also in, but they let Alina Whitman go. So, split of strategies there. Whitman carries on, and, well, she makes way down for full Valenti V Racing. The 230 driver will now be hoping that by going longer, this is going to work out for us. Robin Noel Brown and Jesse Payne Wilkins have both picked up black flags, and we believe that's instant points. So, they've got drive-through penalties they will need to serve as well. And after that, if they gain a few more, what will be instant points, they will be subject to disqualification from the race. They've got to be careful they don't breach those limits, because the limits are definitely going to hurt. And for our 90-minute races, it's 16 instant points for drive-through penalty, 26 for race disqualification. You don't have that many available when you consider the fact here at Road America, one of the longest circuits on the calendar, already we haven't even completed a full hour. We've already seen 28 laps on the board. Well, you do the mathematics there. You can't get away with an instant point per lap being used. You're looking at essentially 1 instant point per every 2 laps on average if you want to stay safe whilst also using them. Meanwhile, Serena Tahar, I think she's made a mistake because where's Flavio Tiefri? He's just snuck through the bottom of the camera. So that is your interleader, and he's got quite a gap now. As more pit stops for Jan Pavlicek, and also I do believe Gianluca Rosberg, Gareth Newton and Ellen Olsen. So all the pit stops are starting to happen in club, albeit Brian Beardsworth yet to pit. But now does Pavlicek decide that he's instead going to just change the fuel over. He's just got low fuel in the car and not change tyres. Learn from what happened at what was the Fuji circuit, and he does. He's only put fuel in that car, and his game plan now is to essentially box Brian Beardsworth in and say to him, okay, when you come into the pit lane, you're only going to put fuel in the car, otherwise you're going to find me very quickly. And, well, whether Beardsworth is aware of it or not, that's entirely at the discretion of his team radioing that through. But I do get the feeling they might, depending on how quickly that Brian Beardsworth decides to come into the pit lane. The team might be watching this broadcast right now, and they'll be listening for any information, any tidbits that we may be able to provide. And to be fair, we can only talk about what we report and see. There is not an embargo in talking about driver strategies out there, although I suspect some drivers would prefer their strategies not to be revealed. But Brian Beardsworth at the moment making his way up towards turn number 12. I want to wait and see if there's a response here for the man who's trying to make it 2 club wins in a row. The GPX Onyx driver today started 3rd in class, but gaining the lead early on, and since then now keeping it all together. But more pit stops at the front of the field, and that is Mirko Bortolotti. So is Benny Witte. Witte's going to be leaving the pit lane first out of the ball. Yannis Albert behind. In fact, hold the phone. Yannis Albert and Benny Witte, they've swapped places as a result, and Witte 2 seconds quicker on the fuel gun. They've only had fuel put in the car, and Christian Ablasser comes out ahead of Jan Lintz and Mirko Bortolotti at the back of the group once more. So all as they were, and Thomas Pugh, meanwhile, he makes his way on through, but actually SimSport driver still on a bit of recovery here in the SimWorks sponsor machine, and he's now got to try and close down a 4.3 second gap to Bortolotti and company as Jan Lintz. Hold up, where's Christian Ablasser? There he is. Where's Christian gone? And when he comes back on, but the question is, how did he end up on the grass in the first place? We definitely didn't fall onto that one, and he's made a mistake somewhere, and I suspect perhaps a little bit too much enthusiasm after the tyres to slightly cool down in the pit lane. May have sown the way he wanted to go whatsoever. We get a quick replay to find out. So this was Ablasser who came out ahead of Jan Lintz, which was perhaps to be expected. He was in 5th place in the pro class, went onto the brakes, carried too much speed into turn 3, and then just let the brakes off and rolled the car into the grass and straightened it up and carried on. The best way to do it, although a mistake he definitely didn't want to make. As Tim Perry's in, but meanwhile, not into the pit lane, is Mirko Bortolotti who retakes the lead. I think this is a statement from Bortolotti, which is by fuel statement off the back of Tim Perry. He's got plenty of fuel in that car, and he's able to go 1 more lap. When you consider the fact 4.04 miles is a lap's length, that is a lot of fuel being saved. Saving an extra lap at Road America is tough. Saving multiple additional laps, that's even tougher. Right now, Perry definitely saving a lot of fuel, but Bortolotti saving what Perry has saved, plus at least 1 more lap here. Well, is going to be what defines the strategic battle between them. As Flavio Tiefri right now has emerged well clear of Serena Tahar, and I believe Tahar has actually changed 2 tyres in the pit lane. Yes, she has. A 36.88 second stop, and when you consider it's 2 seconds to get the car up onto the jacks, and it's 7 seconds per tyre, that would actually suggest that she has put 2 tyres on, because that would be 16 seconds on top of likely 20 seconds of fuel, and Serena Tahar has dropped all the way down the order, and suddenly Rob Papai is here running in effectively what we believe now is 2nd in the interclass, although where will Alina Whitman thread back into this? There she is still being serviced, but Tiefri is going to come through, so is Papai, and here's Max Wheeler. And Wheeler heads across the line, but I think he's going to take back that 3rd place. And therefore it'll be Clyde Vella who's perhaps a little bit closer as Alina Whitman leaves the pit box. Here she goes as we do see Wheeler come through your camera. Here's Clyde Vella, meanwhile not too far away. This is going to be close between Vella and Whitman. There's Whitman getting herself up to speed. Here comes Clyde Vella who bolts past. And Clyde Vella in the end does take full place back in the interclass. So Alina Whitman has therefore moved back into 5th, and just behind her there is Serena Tahar. And for Tahar today, will changing those 2 tyres has proven to be, at least with regards to track position, highly costly. But now could the Quad Dash race it right in the final 30 minutes, pull off a miracle climb through the field. She can do so. Well, what she's going to need to do in order to take back-to-back wins is claw down a grand total of 20 seconds to Flavio Tiefri. It's not impossible, but remember the fact we've got long laps here, 2-minute long laps. It is going to be a very tough ask for Tahar. To be fair, perhaps she'll be able to make magic happen, but she's also got to make her way past 5 very formidable drivers in order to take that win, starting with Alina Whitman. Well, Jose Martinez into the pit lane. Mirko Bortolotti is in as well. And as he makes way down, where is Tim Perry? There we do see him parking literally at the end of the pit lane. He's got the number 1 stall. Here's Perry making his way through the final quarter, rolling his way out. The Scuderia GPX driver heads all the way along. This is going to be close here because Bortolotti, 15 seconds complete already. He will shortly be seeing the fuel gun come out the car. We look back to Perry. This is going to be tight, and there's Bortolotti coming out the pits now. So here we go, and Tim Perry, is he going to be able to go around the outside? Bortolotti rejoins the racing line, and Bortolotti just squeezes ahead in the end. It's only by a grand total of 0.6 of a second. And what was the difference of the fuel guns? It was 0.6 of a second. So Bortolotti in, going 1 extra lap. Tim Perry has stayed right with him, but he's lost track position. Now, can he take it back, or will Bortolotti be able to hold him at bay or even break away? Well, the game is afoot between these two all the way to the end. As meanwhile, we say hello there to Molnar 1995. He's cheering on Robert Papai. And right now, Robert with the gamble on strategy, pitting a bit earlier than some of his rivals, pitting all the way on. In fact, no, pitting as well on lap 28 alongside Flavio Tiefri, pitting later compared to some of his rivals. This has worked out massively for him, going up to 2nd place. But we've also seen, of course, what was Serena Tahar taking that tyre change. But she looks to the move initially there on Alina Whitman. It's not going to work out. As the Dash Racing driver looks to poke, probe, all the way down here in towards turn number 3. But as we jump on board here with Tahar, Hill, she gets a better run there. That's the grip advantage, those left side tyres. You can see able to get the better traction out the corner, but the problem is she can't use all the road. As we do sit there, see the fact on the back there of Alina Whitman's car, no catnip in here, poor officer. Indeed, right now, well, I do love that, but meanwhile, Tahar here decides go all in for it. Forget the catnip. He wants to take the cat's prize, and he's going to take it. She's going to take it there, up into 5th place, and we'll see Tahar into the top 5 now, into class. Next target, Clyde Vella, 4 seconds up the road. Can Tahar get into the final spot before the podium places? 26 minutes to go. The dream is possible. But as they roll the way and throw, meanwhile, Brian Beardsworth, his pit stop was purely for fuel as well. So Brian has reacted to Jan Pavlicek, who has decided only in the end to, of course, put the fuel in to force Beardsworth to have to go to the fuel-only strategy. Otherwise, they would be close together, or it would be Pavlicek who would have taken track position from strategy. So these two seem to be set. As Gareth Newton, meanwhile, is now into 3rd in the club class. Now, what has happened to trigger that? Well, Ellen Olsen came in, and Olsen at the time was a bit further up the road. Has there been an incident for Olsen? I think there has been. It was on lap number 26, a bit earlier on. I think we did talk about that earlier on, and that would actually explain what's happened. So we've had the chop and change of pit stops, plus also the fact we had some earlier stops of drivers, including Gareth Newton back on lap 27. So that fills in the picture. As the GPX Sports Ellen driver makes his way on through. Right now looking quite comfortable and safe versus the rest of the club field. But he doesn't seem to have the pace to close down what would be the leaders of Pavlicek and Beardsworth at this time. Serena Tahar already. In fact, hold up a second. How has she closed that much of a gap down to Max Wheeler so quickly? Wheeler's had a mistake. That's not to be expected there. Max Wheeler's made the mother of all errors, because there you can see he's right close, and here's a quick replay. So this was Wheeler making his way out of the Canada corner, and will in the end, normally as you come up through the chicane you get absolutely right, but Wheeler's got it wrong. The car sliding sideways, my goodness, and it going all the way round, rolling off to run-off area and then getting it back together. So that's how Wheeler's lost all that time. That's why he's falling right back towards Serena Tahar, and right now they say the dominoes sometimes fall perfectly, and for Tahar they are falling lovely right now because she's got the draft of Wheeler very early. That's going to help her on the straights, and can she use the better tyres on that left-hand side of the car through the right-handers to gain the rest of the ground needed, with Clyde Vella only 2.6 seconds up the road. And I'll tell you one thing, Clyde's pace right now is nowhere near that of Tahar. Tahar on the previous lap was was a 2:02.31 to Clyde Vella's 2:03.05. You do the mathematics, that is 0.7 of a second closed up in a single lap. If Tahar can keep this up, it's possible for a podium, but then it's a bigger gap to Rob Papai and Flavio Tiefri, but never say never, particularly if they both fight. And right now I can see a lot of confidence coming in for the Quad Dash Racing driver. She's definitely looking to be a bit of a star. But while she tries to close down the competition at the front of the field, the competition seems to have died down a little bit. Mirko Bortolotti has just set a personal best of this second stint, a 2:01.26, a monster lap there to Tim Perry's 2:02.25, and that's caused the gap between the two to open up to a whole second. Albeit there, I think Perry has perhaps had the short change in a bit of traffic, But either way, that's the way it sometimes goes. And right now, you can't give up here because Bortolotti may have something similar happen later on. Normally, it averages out over the course of a race. But luck will favour some and not all, as Mark Kemp will tell you about that in some of the races he's been in the YouTube chat there in Season 2, where definitely the man who had the pace to win the club championship, well, things didn't quite go right at some of the most critical junctures. And that's not to rub salt in the wound, to be fair, because you've got to remember Mark brought home some incredible wins that season and helped make sure that Full Tilt Virtual Motorsport became teams champions. But here comes Serena Tar right now, and thinking about the here and now, she looks at the inside of Max Wheeler into turn number 1, onto the brake she goes, and just like that gets ahead. But now, will Wheeler come back? The answer is no. Wheeler just doesn't have any grip in that car by comparison. I think for Max, much like many of Tahar's rivals, they're all going to be thinking one thing: there's no point challenging Tahar, she's just got too much grip. But 23 minutes to go this lap, plus at least another, what will be 11 more on the table. But Wheeler is coming back here. Wheeler, the speed of that Corvette, there's a lot less rear wing on that car and a very tall gear stack on it. And Max Wheeler in the end gets close, but he just can't beat Tara on the brakes there. Not enough confidence in the car. But right now, Wheeler showing what he expects the car for, and that is straight line speed. That was monstrous. That was 6 miles an hour gain there in that draft. And now coming in towards turn number 7, well, we can see Alina Whitman following a bit closer behind. The Ford GT driver will be grateful for the fighting, as John Becker, just in a little bit of the rear of the picture, also wants to get a bit more involved. It's not going to be easy as he rolls his way on through. I do have to wonder whether Sed and John, both of the Becker family name, are family siblings there. I'll have to ask him about that after today, albeit if we do get an interview one of them, we'll ask him in the interview. But right now, just spotted that, to be fair. Indeed, always noticing little things, but John Becker right now won't be thinking about family fortunes. He'll be thinking about his own fortunes, and definitely wants to try and get to that top 5 in Inter if he can. But battles elsewhere. What's continuing to rage on out there, as we have had Craig Tillotson towed to the pit lane. He's been involved with Livingston and he's picked up a black flag for instant points. So sadly for Tillotson, the race has gone from good to bad to worse. As our battles are calming down, we've still got 22 minutes to the final lap to go, so it's not over yet. And this is now in the real equinox period of this race, where some drivers will find that concentration levels are really at a premium. As Bortolotti runs as wide as he dares at turn number 5, bearing in mind, of course, that off track now at turn number 5 on the entry, where drivers used to essentially go beyond the entry curb on the outside of the circuit and onto the runoff area. The track limits there have been tightened up quite a bit, so if you do run that wide on a regular basis, you can be at risk of picking up instant points and even a slowdown penalty if you abuse it too much. So Bortolotti's got to be careful of that. He already knows of it, of course, and he does find somebody right through the carousel there. That doesn't help out, and both drivers here catch up to Robin Noel Brown. Bortolotti having to be a bit patient there, but this is the thing about traffic. It comes and it goes, and Noel Brown is under no obligation to drive off of the racing line. He can do so if he wants to help facilitate the lap being put on him, but otherwise he's just to hold his racing line, and it's the lead lap driver to be the one who essentially makes an overtake there. Noel Brown is not allowed to defend, however, as they go too wide for Canada corner. And Bortolotti in the end makes that look absolutely smooth, as Tim Perry still trying to close up a little bit. As they roar the one through, we say hello there to Really Sentinel. I do believe that's how we say your username. And good evening to you. I hope you're doing well. And coming into the viewing season late, can we just clarify what the class differences are? And well, no problem at all. We're always happy. If you've got any questions, by the way, and to anybody tuning in right now, don't be shy. Don't feel free just to say hi. If you are wanting to ask any questions about this championship, indeed the GTEs, feel free. I'll tell you one thing, I have a huge enthusiasm for GTEs in the commentary booth. And indeed, if I can't answer the question for you, I'll definitely go do the research in preparation for the next broadcast so I can answer it for you. You can always test my knowledge. So I should know a lot about this championship, and this is the 3rd season. I've just written myself my firing notice, haven't I? But to answer your question, yes, RGB, whereby if you're red drivers, such as Tim Perry here, they are your pros. That is your top tier of driver in driver class. These are driver classes all in the GTE machine. Meanwhile, if you've got your greens, so that is your 2nd tier, and that is none other than the Inter class, then you have got the likes of Flavio Tiefri. Tier number 2, middle class there, the drivers are looking to one day become the pros. And then your blues, well, they are your more rookie or amateur drivers, perhaps, not to be unfair to them, but you could say that's their pace compared to the pro-ams, if you will, of your greens. And then your pros are the reds, and that is your club class. Currently, your leader of that class is Brian Beardsworth, and that fills you in with regards to that. As all drivers cover on throw, could also see a few of you jumping in there. It's also price of help there in the YouTube chat. I love it when community spirit comes together, which is fantastic. And also you can all keep me on my toes in case I get something wrong. I'm not afraid to get things wrong, to be fair, ladies and gentlemen. I can definitely tell you that. And meanwhile, we have a bit of drama for Florian Gooder for Full TV Racing. And sadly, that is a black flag there. That means 16 instant points or more have been gathered for good. And, well, it therefore means they are going to go into the pits for a drive-through penalty within the next 3 laps. That's not going to help, given the fact they were at the time, or earlier on, fighting for a potential chance for a top 8 spot in the Pro class, but since then have lost out to a degree as they make their way around the outside of Sarah Becker. But I think this might have been one of the incidents that helped Gooder on their way to losing out. This was back on lap number 29 in the Full TV Racing Drive, made the way down to the brain zone for the hairpin, chased after Max Wheeler at the time, carried the speed in, and the rear of the car completely let go, and we had to get it back together there, and definitely a bit frustrating moment, and then off track or two has just added to that instant point count and sent them over the 16 limit. But as all the drivers carry on, we'll come back to your live pictures, and still more to come, as we do have a replay of what happened to Craig Tillotson. And this was Tillotson earlier on. He was battling, I believe, with Sarah Becker at the time. Looks at the move here in towards Canada corner. Outbroke himself by looks of things there. Went very deep. Went deeper into the gravel trap and had a bit of a brush with the tyre barrier. And that was enough to force the car to tow to the pit lane. Also black flag there, but I think Tillotson's race, sadly, at its end. He has had to retire the car. So we're down to 39 runners of 50 starters now. Bit of a rate of attrition here. But speaking of a rate of attrition, how's the attrition looking for tyres on the car? So let's take a look at those weather conditions. Goodness me, that track temperature now 43 degrees Celsius. It is really peaking right now as we head into the early portion of the afternoon here in the US state of Wisconsin. We haven't had too much cloud come over the circuit. The ambient temperature stayed at 19 degrees centigrade. It stayed quite cool here today, but track temperature continuing to rise, of course. The amount of rubber being laid down, plus also constant sunlight. And do keep in mind, of course, that whilst ambient temperature is staying the same, the more sunlight you project onto the circuit, you typically see the heating of the tarmac surface. And with drivers out there as well, it all adds. It does become a real cooker of a piece of tarmac. And that is why you see this track temperatures really get so high. Mirko Bortolotti clears, but it's another car there in the form of another, I believe, Gianluca Rospo. We'll put in a lap on Rospo there. The 4th place runner at the moment in the club class. And how have we not talked about this? He's doing a very good job for Deep Motorsport with Rhino Motorsports. Well, keeping himself very much in contention. Got a chance of podium, although he's got to find 9 seconds on Gareth Newton, and right now, Newton is the quicker driver. We can definitely say is that regards to the approach he's using, he's very comfortable for a top 5. And one driver who's really impressing right now in club, and let's talk a bit more about this man, Andy Rooney. Now, if you're wondering why we're talking about him, keep in mind he started from the back of the field. He opted to pit on lap 19, and he did change at least 2 tyres in that pit stop. And right now, he's in 7th place in club, having started in 18th place. Yes, there have been retirements to factor into that, but also he's making that fresher tyre really work for him. He is closing the even out curve quite quickly. So a fight for 6th place in the class is on the cards, perhaps in the next 3 to 4 laps. But as they all head onwards, we come back to Clyde Bell and Serena Tahar. And Tahar, of course, now looking to make a way for 3rd here in the interclass. Tahar is one of a limited number of interdrivers who change 2 tyres, both the left-hand side tyres, front and rear, in order to improve grip through the right-handers, which this is a clockwise circuit, so it's dominant right-hander corners. But here comes Tahar then, making away down the start-finish straight in the BMW. Some of you said it's a bus, some of you said it's a barge, but right now, can she barge away past? Not quite. Decides to back off there into turn 1 versus Vella. Oh, B. Now, why do that? Whoa, that's going to be a driver getting a bit loose. That's Sarah Becker, who ejects himself out stage left. We'll say getting it wrong again. The opening quarter's really the bane of his existence today, but I think Tahar perhaps not as confident on the brakes as she used to be. Plus also, remember, these two did have some scraps earlier in the race, and Clyde Vella did prove to be a very late breaker. So I think what Tahara's trying to do here, she's trying to drag race her past, get halfway down the straight and make the move, and then defend on the inside. And that's what she's going to do here. She comes down in towards turn number 5, onto the brakes. Now can Clyde Vella try and make some magic happen? Tahar goes all in into a left-hander. Those right-hand side tyres, they have not been replaced on Tahar's car, so it's equal tyre wear on that side of the car. But Tahar makes that absolutely perfectly, and now moves away up onto the podium for the interclass. And 2 more places to go, but the problem she's now got is the next gap is 13.5 seconds to Rob Papai. Last lap, she did take 8 tenths out of Papai's time. She's going to need to take at least 2 seconds lap now if she wants to have a chance here of the win. That's not going to be easy, given that Flavien Tieffry was only 4 tenths slower that previous lap, so Tahar has really got to get going some right now. I just get the feeling that the car, as much as she's pushing it, it may not have that pace left in it. The two at Rob Pavai still trying to find a way to chase down Flavien Thierry, but Thierry's lap times are quicker by comparison. Well, right now, the Hungarian driver, if he takes second today, I think he'll be very happy with second place, given the way his race started, how he's really had to build himself back up after some early incidents. Well, Pavai really showed himself to be a contender, and that's the great thing. What Road America is showing us here today, and indeed, with regards to all three of our classes, although you could say Mirko Bortolotti at the front of Pro, going on to take back-to-back wins, but also keep in mind that Tim Perry has kept him honest every step of the way. All three of our classes have got drivers up there right now. There is no guaranteed favourite or someone who's just going to run away with every win. There is competition. After 2 rounds, we had a very technical circuit and now a power circuit, plus the data we had from pre-season and going into the season from our drivers. These classes are so well matched here at the moment based on what we're seeing, and we do plan to do a class revision check coming after this round. Going into round number 3, we always revise, we open up the classes to potential revisions in case anyone's been classed wrong, and well, we'll have to wait and see if anybody does get changed, but something tells me that right now we may not be seeing too many shuffling about, if any at all, as we do have a disqualification, sadly, from none other than Jesse Payne Wilkins, and that'll be for 26 instant points, and so his race in the interclass has come to an abrupt halt and won't be taking home any points today. As Thomas Weston right now into the pit lane once again here, as is Brandon White, although Brandon White is in for repair work for the car, and I believe is now leaving the pit lane at long last. It has spent 2 minutes there. Now Thomas Weston heads on down pit road. I think this might be a quick splash and dash of fuel. So it hasn't quite worked out, but still he will be on course to pick up another place on Payne Wilkins when he makes his way past him in terms of number of laps completed. But as I head of the round, we do say hello there to Penguin Architect, who says that the server has decided to see him disconnect again. And well, that's not great news. I'm very sorry to hear that. And well, I'm getting a bit forgetful on my memory here, but I'm going to take a guess that might be our driver of none other than what could be. I want to say here's a Svedra there, although if I'm wrong, feel free to correct me there, Penguin Architect. As we see Benny Witte here, well, he makes his way forward and he's battling with Mirko Bortolotti. Bortolotti does try to take third place off of him and does so. The Reptile Racing driver right now, and definitely the scales of this battle shifting in the favour of Mirko Bortolotti and not in what is the favour of the scaly machine for Reptile Racing of Witte. Bortolotti back up to third place. He does so well, the M-Team Gazix driver, but still more in this one. Should he be able to make his way forward, but 15 seconds to Tim Perry. It's not going to be easy, and perhaps right now the game is just break away for Witte and hold on for the final spot at the podium. And coming down in towards the left-hander turn number 5, this will be hoping he can perhaps come back. 11 minutes still on the clock here. Could be some more twists to the tail, and of course a lot of drivers, they have picked up instant points as the day goes on. Could we see anybody at risk of potentially picking up a late drive-through penalty and suddenly throwing away what could be a huge result? Well, in the meantime, Andy Rooney still making his way forward here, chasing after Ivan Hauptke. We ride on board the FTVM red driver. It's great to see how his race is really coming strong now with that strategic gamble. Of course, has lost a lot of time in the pits as a result of changing those 2 tyres. The best part of what was 14 seconds, it would seem. In fact, I want to go more towards 16 seconds there. Now we do the maths in our head. But either way, Rooney definitely marshalling his way forward for FTVM red. And even Hauptke 1 second up the road. The lap times between these two are starting to equalise. Rooney, keeping in mind, of course, did pit on lap number 19. And those fresh tyres, they won't remain fresh forever. They will naturally go from a prime phase into what is their stable phase, but already been worn down. Rooney matching there as they roar the way through the King. In fact, you can see they're gaining from carousel to King 5/10 of a second. Just like that, it was a second coming into the carousel, and now it's closed up to that through the kink and in towards Canada Corner. And it's all these right-hand corners. That's where Rooney's just got so much more confidence in the car. Left-handers, they're pretty equal, and that's where Hauptke opens the gap back up. But always, as soon as he leans on those left-hand side tyres, he's able to abuse them more, and it gives him so much more confidence here to attack for that 6th place in the class. And there'll be 7 seconds to Ellen Olsen, but that might be a bridge too far. But up the hill they go, and as they do, right now storming away towards the braking zone. Well, getting ready to see what's going to play out between the two of them. Right now, Rooney still 3.5 tenths behind, has got to get going just a little bit more. We're going down onto the brakes there, and the 1-2-1 driver, well, definitely in the draft, slowly and steadily gaining some time, perhaps not as rapidly as the BMW is able to gain straight line speed by default. But Rooney here, perhaps getting ready for a move in the next couple of laps. To leave the FTVM red driver at bay for now. We do look back to Nathan Healy, the sister team car for FTVM purple. Well, the 187 driver here with a 2.8 second gap to Jose Martinez. Martinez is slowly creeping towards him. There you see Martinez. And indeed, we haven't seen Martinez for some time for validity of V-Racing Roads, but the Mexican driver definitely looking quick. Steve Carter rounds off the top 10 in club at the moment. And unfortunately, it does seem as though for what will be Carter, he's running out of time to take these places back. Remember, of course, he picks up plenty of places at the start of the race. Then he has since had that extended pit stop, and that was a 1 minute and 5 second pit stop. I think it has been the pit stop where he's changed all the tyres, done some repair work to the car as well. You name it, that Steve has had to do it to the car. But it does mean he has now a car in its prime, and that's why he's gaining so much lap time. As we go away from that rhyme, and indeed now we head back to your front man, Mirko Bortolotti. We do have a black flag. We said we might see some, and unfortunately for Quad Dash Racing, it is Yannis Albert. A drive-through penalty, and that's for instant points. The Quad Dash Racing driver who was looking to complete a race inside the top 5 today. Unfortunately, that opportunity in the pro class has got away, because he will have to come in before this race is over or receive a post-race time penalty to the tune of at least a minute. And the Quad Dash Racing driver now knowing that pit lane is going to be called in, and it's going to be the most painful trip down pit road that he'll have here today, as he makes one to limiter, and he wants to get this done as quickly as possible, but he'll be pretty much wheeling the car on, as that means Christian Ablasser now moves up into 5th place in pro and overall. Thomas Pugh also comes through amongst some other drivers as well. Speaking of Thomas Pugh, still getting headway and headwind, up into 6th, but dropping Jan Lintz, who lost out a little bit earlier on, and in fact Lintz really losing out with 1 or 2 mistakes. It was on lap number 31 where he made the biggest mistake of them all, and enabled Christian Ablasser and Pugh to come through, and since then he's now just trying to get back into this. There is the man we're talking about, as he flashes headlights there and trying to send a message to both Andy Rooney and even Hauptke, which is, I'm coming up behind you, can you please be ready for me? As we ride on board here with Jan Lintz, the only problem is he's cut behind 2 club drivers who I think are going to be a lot more focused on their battle compared to letting the pro man through. And well, understanding Andy Rooney already looking for the move there, comes down to the braking zone, in the end doesn't go for it there, but trying to make Hauptke think that move was coming, try and go and get in defensive. And Jan Lintz here looking up the inside into turn 6. He's going to pull the trigger on it. He is going to go for it on the inside there. So Lintz decides to gamble. Now, Rooney may not be too happy about that initially, but the reality is he's actually got to think to himself, you know what? It's been made, it's been done. And now the pressure is actually on Hauptke to essentially respond and make sure that he doesn't lose as much time as Rooney did. But if we do see Jan Lintz go for the move somewhere, you never know. This could help Rooney out. And maybe he's still 16 seconds behind. It is not as much of a concern. I think he'll be feeling quite safe at this time. We're on the way on through, and the carousel. We do come back up to Alina Whitman in the meantime, as she breaks away from John Becker. I do believe she's recently passed John Becker's position. And what happened to Becker? So this is Becker making his way down towards turn number 5, and I get the feeling he's going to go very deep into the corner. Big lock up on the front left, and goes deep, takes it almost to the gravel trap, and Alina Whitman just simply says, I'll take 6th. Thank you very much. That being in the interclass. But we come back, and as we do, we come to Kai Hitchler, who finds himself all over the back of him, or in fact finds himself surrounded there by drivers, but particularly Serena Tahar trying to knock on his door here, and Tahar right now still trying to crusade her way up the field for overall places, albeit thread the needle between the two. It's Nathan Healy who's a lap down there, so Healy right now doesn't want to give up track position if he can help it, although I think this is more the fact that right now he wants what will be Serena Tahar just to simply make the move on the start-finish straight, where she can gain the most time for the least expense to Healy. As Guy Hitchler comes out the corner, he'll be grateful here for a bit of breathing room, and it just allows him to focus on going on to lap number 42. But in terms of the lead battle, well, here is Mirko Bortolotti. He is 16 seconds behind your top 2. He runs in 3rd overall. Benny Witte still 1.5 seconds behind. And well, they are being separated now by a couple of cars. They've put a lap down. Traffic is definitely playing to some and playing against others, as Serena Tahar makes her way past David Healy down the start for the straight. Now looks to go on the hunt for Kai Hitchler again. But as Andy Rooney and even Hauptke follow each other, there is Hauptke, with Jan Lintz having made the move down the start for the straight, so in the end Hauptke was able to neutralise the potential loss of time. And between the two of them now is Seb Becker. Becker being a lap down on both of these drivers, who are also a lap down leaders. So Seb Becker understandably at least 2 laps down at this point of the race. And Hauptke has been able to get past the Sud Sport driver. And that does mean that now it's Andy Rooney's turn there to have to make his way on past. And he goes from a driver being lapped to a driver who has to put a lap on a drive. It's always a bit difficult. He'll be just looking to dig his head in here and see if he can make some magic happen. And as he does so, Florian Gooder well, the number 399 driver who had a drive-through penalty and has lost out to a degree. Well, in 18th place at the moment, trying to attack Tom Cordy for 17th overall, but it's purely for overall position. No points up for grabs if he promotes himself, and that is simply due to the fact of Cordy being in the interclass. But we had a bit of an error for Serena Tahar recently. There's Tahar bringing it back together. You may have seen the gravel going up into the air, the dust up in the air. And that was the third place in Inter. And Clive Vella, well, he's not going to waste any time here, going back on the attack. And Tahar perhaps making a mistake, alternatively being elbowed wide there. But either way, Vella right now getting ready to look for it. Can he make a move happen? The answer is no. And the GPX Simsport Onyx driver stays behind. And, well, Tahar here may have been a bit of a near miss and a lucky escape perhaps. We will see. But battle that's definitely raging on here down the start for this straight. There is Ivan Hauptke, and there's Andy Rooney looking for the move, and Rooney goes for it here into the braking zone. He goes all in, and in the end, Hauptke gives him the space. Rooney there decides to gamble. He decides to take a gambit on the confidence. He's going too wide now into turn number 3. Can Rooney get this done? Onto the brakes. He will get to the inside, but now the problem is they're going to have to power the way onwards, and the BMW surely is going to come back here unless Hauptke hasn't got the straight line speed in the car. Well, Hauptke 3 tenths behind here, and Rooney right now actually is keeping that gap relatively stationary. 2 tenths now as they make their way down towards turn number 5. And Rooney may be safer as Hauptke backs off into the braking zone. He does not have the confidence. So Andy Rooney is up in the 6th placing club now. Solid move to be fair, and to do it twice, going through turn 1 and turn from that inside line. Well, it shows you how far Andy Rooney is coming this season, but he goes a bit wide there at turn number 8. Does he get it back together? Yes, he does. And in fact, through turn number 6, not 8 there. I'm getting my 2 right-angled left-handers confused with each other, but Andy Rooney makes that move happen. But with that, well, we do have some more news to bring you. We had a disqualification from Jesse Payne-Wilkins earlier on. Now we have one as well, I believe. We did have something with Gianluca Rosberg only moments ago, unless I'm mistaken. We did see his name have a symbol against it, and, well, it was erroneously listed as a disqualification. Now, I don't cover my time in town, but not quite so. So I think that was a glitch. Thankfully, that glitch has been rectified. Rosberg right now still racing as far as we are concerned. So apologies if that confused any of you there. We definitely had that come on our timing screen here in the commentary booth. Maybe didn't come onto the broadcast. But more drives out as Cornelis Verskevicius has picked up a black flag. I think that's speed in the pit lane. He has had to come in for what would be a splash and dash final fuel stop. As meanwhile, speaking of final things, we're on the final lap, I think. Mirko Bortolotti leads the way as we do say hello to EG5005, who's cheering on Jan Lintz, who right now still chasing after Thomas Pugh, not on camera. As here we look at Mirko Bortolotti. And then Tim Perry, 4.5 seconds behind. Right now, both these drivers, are they going to get one extra lap? Maybe, maybe not. I can't quite see what is the flag booth on the start-finish line to be able to discern that fact. Oh, what's happened there? There's Clive Vella coming through, and that's Serena Tahar. Tahar's gone round. Now, has she been caught up with Nathan Healy? Because Tahar, the chance for a podium, it's all in tatters as she gets herself back together. And right now, black flag as well for instant points for Tahar. It's all come to a crushing halt. And here's a quick replay to explain. And, well, as we do see, Serena Tahar then on the replay behind Nathan Healy. Got close there to the back of the FTVM pink driver, tapped him on the rear, and they both went round there in the ensuing carnage. And, well, Tahar, unfortunately, seen it all go wrong behind a lap down car. But as she heads down pit road, meanwhile, 30 seconds left to go. As I head in towards turn number 12 at Canada Corner, we say hello to Marco Pitaluga there, giving his thoughts on what happened to what was Gianluca Rosberg. And I do believe that message has been deleted from the YouTube chat now. I'm not going to repeat it live on air. And as we do see Bortolotti go through turn number 14. All right, now 10 seconds left here. This could be the final lap. We're going to see if it is. But if it is, ladies and gentlemen, I'll tell you one for the Gazix Racing Team driver. It is going to be his second winner's season. The checker flag waves. And for Bortolotti today, he's had to fend off this man, Tim Perry, who kept him honest, but finishes runner-up for Scuderia GPX overall and in Pro. But then we've got a bit of time before we do come to your third place man. He lost out versus Benny Witte in the early stage of the race and has had to fight his way back up into third. But then nobody can deny the podium for Marinko Jordowski. He will complete the podium here in Pro. And overall, Benny Witte fourth today, just ahead of Christian Ablasser, who completes the top 5 of Gazix Racing Team in a more straightforward race. Thomas Pugh on his debut in Pro. Give him a round of applause. He takes home 6th place there with a absolutely huge drive ahead of Jan Lintz, who completes your Pros to 7th place. And Flavien Thierry brings on home his first Interwear of the season, 8th overall, with a stellar drive. Rob Papai comes on through just behind there in the Zamba RP Motorsport car to complete the run-up point into a 9th overall. Yannis Albert, unfortunately, it's his hair that he'll tear out after throwing away a chance for a podium today, but the Quad Dash Racing drive completes your top 10, ahead of Kai Hitchler, and then we will see Clyde Vella with Alina Whitman and Max Wheeler to line. So Vella takes 3rd in the interclass. Alina Whitman just holds off Max Wheeler. I think she out-dragged him to line, and then we do have John Becker a little bit further behind them, ahead of Florian Good. Florian Gooder, I should say, and then we will see Tom Cordy and Serena Tahar in due course. Now we have to give a shout out to Gareth Newton. He has already finished his race, 3rd in club class, ahead of Dwayne Hoffman, Gianluca Rospo and Andy Rooney. But meanwhile, Brian Beardsworth has got a few more quarters to go, and as he does so, well, Serena Tahar's in front of him. So first, it's commiserations for the fine Dutch lady of Quad Dash Racing, who was on course for that podium, but it wasn't to be. But instead, she's had to settle for 8th place in Inter. But then Brian Beardsworth heads under the gantry camera, and he is going to make it 2 wins in a row in the club class. Brian Beardsworth wins there with 19th overall. Jan Pavlicek brings on home 2nd in club with a huge drive today and making sure to keep Beardsworth honest. And of course, Gareth Newton a lap down, your 3rd and final finish on the club podium there, 22nd overall and a lap down with it. We had a late disqualification, as pointed out there by Mark Kent, for none other than Ellen Olsen, and that's going to drop her down to 31st place, but I think maybe disqualified from the race results as well. And given that, and well, we also had disqualification for Tom Weston right at the end, among others. But as our drivers cool and calm down, what a race we've had here today, ladies and gents, at Road America. 90 minutes of intense racing, and plenty of you enjoyed it. Katie Gale there has enjoyed it, saying great race, and Katie seems very happy for the drive from Gianluca Rospo, who brought home 4th in the club class in the end, and he just shy of that podium, but did a brilliant job. But as the drivers do cool and calm down, we need to take a look back at that battle between Alina Whitman and Max Wheeler at the finish line. Here it was. Now, this was coming out the final corner, so they were all over the back of Clyde Vella, and Alina Whitman in the end, despite a lot of oversteer out the final quarter, she went for it. Goodness me, did she go for it. Out dragging the Corvette to the line, literally by hair, and Whitman making that move happen. What an epic ending then. And in, well, you can understand, well, not even Hauke, but Clyde Vella must have been thinking to himself, thank goodness I was ahead of the pair of them. I was going to have lost out on the podium. With that, ladies and gentlemen, before we lose our voice, let's take a look at those race results, subject to any Stewards' inquiries as we head to the scenic view. And what an epic here at Elkhart Lake for round number 2 of 10 in the SimRacing International GTE Championship Season 3, brought to you on iRacing, hosted today at the wonderful Wisconsin countryside circuit of Road America. And Mirko Bortolotti taking victory for the 2nd time this season for Gazek's racing team. But today, it was not a comfortable run to win, with Tim Perry for Scuderia GPX almost beating Bortolotti on strategy. It was 6 attempts in the pit lane that made the difference and allowed Bortolotti to retake the track position lead and then gradually open up that final gap of 3.5 seconds. Rinko Joranowski, 3rd place there for the M-Team Gazek's outfit. A solid drive, given he slipped to the back end of the top 10 early on and had to fight his way back through to be on the podium. Had a Benny Witte there, 4th place, the Reptile Racing driver, 4 seconds behind, but 3 seconds Christian Ablasser, with the Gazek's racing team driver having a much more straightforward run to a top 5 finish today, but couldn't quite make it 2 podiums in a row. Thomas Pugh, what could it have been for him, given his brilliant start in qualifying? Well, it wasn't quite a podium, nor a top 5. He was 1 place shy of it in 6th for Axis Sim Sport, ahead of Jan Lintz, AR Team Gazek's, and, well, understanding they're completing that pro run, 7th place for him, and picking up the pieces dropped by so many others, including Yannis Albert. Because between him and Albert, it was Flavien Thierry, your inter-winner for Sud Sport Racing, first win of the season for him, and Rob Papai make his way onto the podium, a very happy drive there, and the Zamba RP Motorsport drive came on increasingly strong as the race went on. Yannis Albert completed the top 10 for Quad Dash Racing ahead of Kai Hitchler for Leopard Esports, who couldn't quite make it into the overall top 10, and Clyde Vella completing the into podium over the late twist for what was Serena Tahar, and the GPX Sims were Onyx driver just ahead of Alina Whitman by what was a grand total of 10ths at the line, as Whitman outrun Max Wheeler to complete the race in 13th, and the full TV Racing driver taking that 4th place in Inter ahead of Max Wheeler, who round off the class's top 5 for LVP Autosport. Then we had John Becker 15th ahead of Florian Good, as we did see the full Infinity v Racing Driver head behind the Supersport Racing Driver, albeit they swapped back and forth as the race went on, but Gooder in the end lost out with regards to a penalty in the pit lane, and it was 2 seconds back to Tom Cordy for LBP Autosport, with Serena Tahar for Quad Dash Racing to settle for 18th. Then did see Brian Beardsworth 19th for GPX SimSport Onyx, ahead there of Jan Pavlicek, and the priority completing a top 20, and with it, of course, well, runner-up to Brian Beardsworth, who's made it 2 in a row for the club class. Outside the top 20, 21st, Matt Bowers there, the privateer, the first of many to finish a lap down. Gareth Newton, also a lap down, their third in the club class, GPX SimSport Xenon, and made sure to steer clear of the growing threat to Dwayne Hoffman and Gianluca Rospo in the late stages. Andy Rudy did make it into the top 5 in the club class, huge drive from the FTVM red driver, and a gamble on what was pitting early compared to most, and it paid off in spades. Even a Hauptke just managed to hold on to what's that 6th place in the class in the end, with Andy Rooney making the move late on, and Hauptke losing out. And in fact, I think we didn't quite see that happen on camera. It happened right at the end, I do believe. So we will see if we can get a replay of that before we do cue to what will be the interviews. And well, we did see Rooney have that happen, with Hauptke then followed up by Jose Martinez, Steve Carter, Nathan Healy, and Matthew Massey to complete your top 30. It was 2 laps down with a disqualification right at the end there for Ellen Olsen, so it'll be interesting to see whether she does get the points in the race. Indeed, all of our disqualified drivers, when they do actually get awarded points, but we'll see that in the standings in what will be a week's time, with Mikhail Salkuni not disqualified, but finishing behind Olsen based on the lap count, and Max Dean ahead of Karolis Svetskevicius, and then Sarah Becker completing your top 35. Brandon White was also 2 laps down, giving way to 3 laps down for Robin Noel Brown and the disqualified Thomas Weston, and then we did see a disqualification for Jesse Payne Wilkins ahead of Craig Tillotson, and outside the top 40 non-finishers included Tillotson as well as Hazer Svedra, Kevin Smith, Jordan Butler, Stefan Gamby, John Lebrook, Hugo Robb, Rene Russler, Gavin Corby, Ben Slabance, and sadly a non-start due to the technical issue for Concord Motorsports is Oliver Kemp. Then to individual class finish positions we go, because of course this is where the points are made and paid. Starting with Pro, and Mirko Bortolotti, your winner of your 12 Pro drivers, with a phenomenal drive there for Gazek's racing team, holding off Tim Perry all the way to the end when the two battled it out on strategy as much as they did on the circuit. Scuderia GPX taking the best result of the season so far, but Perry wants that win, and he was so close to achieving it here today. Renko Jornowski third for M-Team Gazek, 17 seconds behind, but 4 ahead of Benny Witte, with the Reptile Racing driver, making sure to steer clear of Gazek's racing team's Christian Ablasser. Thomas Pugh was 6th ahead of Jan Lintz with the AR Team Gazek's driver, losing out midway through the race with that huge excursion after his pit stop to the grass at turn number 3, spawning his chances of top 5. Yannis Albert, sadly for him, slipping back to 8th place with a drive-through penalty, but still ahead of Kai Hitchler, and Florian Gooder, the last to finish on the lead lap for Full Infinity V Racing, a lap ahead of Matt Bowers, and then it was a non-finish for Hugo Robb, sadly, with the early incident between himself and Bowers in towards turn number 5 on the open lap. Then to the interclass we go, and here we can see in the second of our classes, it was Flavin Tiefri who took victory for Supersport Racing, and taking that win in the end by the best part of 6 seconds ahead of Robert Papaya for Zamba RP Motorsport. Clyde Vella, third there for GPX SimSport Onyx, the best part of 19 seconds drift, with Alina Whitman in 4th place there for Full Infinity V Racing, and stealing away 5th, stealing away 4th I should say, but couldn't quite take 3rd, but so close between the trio because Max Wheeler was right there as well for LBP Autosport, but that of course opened up as a result of the late instant and drive-through penalty for Serena Tahar. On the way to Serena Tahar in 8th place, there was John Becker for Supersport Racing and Tom Cordy for LBP Autosport. With Cordy, if he'd had a better start to the race, it could have been a better end to it, but still, he made sure not to give up, and that's why he earned himself some very valuable points. And Serena Tahar, after the win at Fuji, it definitely has been a reality check here at Road America, although, to be fair to her, running constantly for the podium, but that late instant with Nathan Healy, spoiling her chances of being on the podium for the second time this season. Behind the Quad Dash Racing drive, it was a lap down for FTVM Purple's Dwayne Hoffman, 2 laps down to Brandon White for Hitbox Racing, who completed the top 10, and then Robin Noel Brown, a length there for GPX M8 Motorsport, ahead of Thomas Weston, who was disqualified. We then did see a disqualification as well for Jesse Payne Wilkins, and then we had non-finishes for Hazer Svedra, Kevin Smith, Stefan Gamby, John Lebrook, Rene Russler, Ben Slabance, and Oliver Kemp, your non-starter. Then to the club class we go, the last of our classes, but we always mean the same as we do so. And Brian Beardsworth GPX SimSport Onyx makes it 2 in a row. But today, it was about taking the lead early on as others dropped the ball and got caught up in instance and not putting a foot wrong. He is definitely proving to be Mr. Consistent, and I think he has definitely taken some inspiration from Gareth Newton's incredible charge in Season 2, where it wasn't necessarily about the wins, it was about not making mistakes. Jan Pavlicek finished runner-up then, the priority 4.3 seconds wide, and slowly closing the gap down in the late stages, with Gareth Newton the first to finish a lap down and completing the podium there for GPX SimSport Xenon. We did see a lap down as well for Gianluca Rospo for Deep Motorsport with Rano Motorsport, and looking at very quick as he did so, the Italian driver, steering clear of Andy Rooney, who found that late move on Ivan Hauptke for FTVM Red. The GPX M8 Motorsport driver losing out on their final lap. And for their TV Racing Rose's Jose Martinez was ahead of Steve Carter, with Nathan Healy and Matthew Massey completing the top 10. A frustrating day today for both Healy and also the priority from Spectre Racing of Massey, with Ellen Olsen in the end best of rest, but disqualified down 2 laps, and Mikhail Salkuni at 12th there for Rhino Esports, and the win not coming his way today. Max Dean, Corrales Vaskevicius, and also none other than Sarah Becker completing a top 15. Now it's non-finishers of Class 5 for Craig Tillotson, John Butler, and Gavin Corby. But, ladies and gentlemen, with that, just before we do cut to our preparation for interviews, let's take a look at how exactly Andy Rooney made that move to take what was none other than 5th place in the club class. And here's the replay. And this was the battle between himself and, of course, not even Hauptke. We did catch this earlier on. My memory comes back, but there's that brilliant move, of course, 2 wide through turns 1 and 3. And Rooney making that move happen there and, well, getting the job done just like that. Definitely one of the epics here of today. With that, we go back to circuit side, and as we do, well, we hide all the information because it's time for us to get set, ladies and gentlemen, for our post-round interview. So away we go. We're back in approximately 5 minutes' time for a few interviews from our volunteer drivers. You won't want to miss them, that I can assure you. And it's lights out and away we go for our season opener. As Sardply gets a good start, but look alongside him and you'll see there Milton Tomlinson Dennis immediately going the attack into the braking zone. 1 drive into the grass already. That's Mikey Story, but 3 wide. They come into the opening corner. That's a bold move there. William Humphrey makes the place as they make the way through in towards turn number 2. I think the Altitude 3M esports driver here might just be fancying his chances once again as they come into the braking zone now for turn number 1. And as they make the way from right into left, well, Hayden Miller here side by side with him. They'll go all the way through to turn number 3. And Saunders does take the place there. That's for overall position, not for pro position. Saunders is the pro leader, but he goes a bit deep there in 3 to the inside of 4 then. And Miller right now enjoying this. Saunders enjoying it. A little bit of rub and contact between the 2 of them, but nothing wrong with a bit of bump and grind between the 2 Fords, for the Ford and the Corvettes, the 2 Americans, I should say. And
with those 2 Evo drivers in front of them, because, you know, they're realistically in a completely different race, they're just a barrier up towards the likes of Rubino and Wendling. Oh, there's Rubino going off the road, and here comes James Bostock, past 1, past 2. This is a great little move from James.
Oh, and look behind him as well. Hardiak, sorry, up high. He decides to come back down low. But Denny Plurger has really lost a lot of ground here. He's lost 7 places since the start of this race in that green Porsche. But look at this for the lead. Hammond wants it. He's gone back down the inside. He got off the brakes again to let the car down the inside of Rob Mackay. And you said Rob was going to be clinging on at the front. And now he's clinging on to second. Great move by Lewis Hammond. Really good committed stuff. And look, down the inside, Richard White. He wants a piece of this in the Porsche. He's got James Bostock.
And it's lights out and away we go here as Mirko Bortolotti goes exactly on the green, and as they roar the way down towards turn number 1, Martin Statman side by side with him, but look behind, Tim Perry under pressure and Miguel Leon immediately as the Enosis Esports driver tries to put the pressure on. Further back we've got 3, 4 wide, they're all in the crush as they come through the opening bank. Look back for the rear of your second place runner, Statman, and Statman right now for the Gazex Racing team. What he's trying to do here, I think now, is just hold on to second, and if needed, he may have to act as a bit of a buffer and perhaps sacrifice a little bit of his race for the race leader here. Although Bortolotti, to be fair, I think might be holding some pace back, but here comes Lux in the tow, in towards what we roller coaster they come with the Virginian corkscrew. It's left into right very quickly here as they both make the way, and it's 2 wide on entry, but Lux gets ahead. It's up into second now, as it will be Martin Statman falling down to 3rd, but Callum Lux does clear another one, and now only 1 car is between him and an opportunity of victory here today. Which is Perry going to make the move, or I'm going to have to make the move for him? Well, there's your answer. Perry's going to go on the inside here of Dean Dean into the braking zone. Edwards gets to watch it from the popcorn seat view. Perry there being too wide on exit. Dean's going to try and hang around the outside. Does Edwards think about going up the inside as well? He gets himself ready for it in case there's contact, but there's not. Perry there being fair. Dean tucks back in behind. Lovely move there from Tim Perry. And I think meanwhile Beardsworth will hope they don't get close up in time, as Beardsworth's going to look up the inside. He goes all in, and it's from very far back. He gets it stopped, however, and Beardsworth there nails the move, but Tillerson's going to come back at him up the hill. Does he go in on the brakes here? This is bold to do it on the inside. No, he does not. And Brian Beardsworth at the end, he gets it wrong. He goes out wide at turn number 6. Tillerson's going to be too wide with him, but too wide they're going to turn 7. Tillerson goes on the switch back there. 9 is no way through, and in the end they come down towards turn number 8. Well, there Tillerson backs off. He lets Hutchinson go around the outside, but is it the right call? Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, it is time to kick off our interviews. And who better to hear from than the man who took Mirko Bortolotti every step of the way today in the pro class. Joining me now, it's none other than Tim Perry. Tim, good evening to you. What a race from yourself. Keeping Mirko Bortolotti honest every step of the way over 90 minutes. Almost taking the win, but just not quite today.
Yeah, it was a really tough race. It was very enjoyable, very tactical in phases as well. Yeah, it was. I had pretty good pace, but just not quite enough pace compared to him. But yeah, I'll definitely take a P2.
Oh, most definitely. I mean, we've seen you go to the Ferrari this season, and you are a huge fan of the Ferrari. We saw you in it last season, of course. You're getting so much out of it. But I have to ask, since that big balance performance update, it just seems like the Ferrari now is clicking so much more.
Yeah, I mean, I don't never think it was that bad. It's weirdly so. Obviously, when they had the big kind of change up with the rules, like I find the Ferrari now a much better long run car compared to a short run car. I think over a few laps, it really struggles to get its tyres up to temperature, but then in the long run, it actually performs really well, and it performs quite well on the in kind of like that middle period of the race where you've got a mid amount of fuel and a mid amount of wear. I feel like that's when it really shines. So yeah, I'm actually enjoying it since the update, and obviously it's had a little kind of a BOP adjustment as well, which has helped.
Oh, indeed, making the car more enjoyable and helping it move forward as well with slight BOP adjustment. But coming to the here and now, obviously qualifying today, 3rd place in class and overall in a very tight field, and you were the only non-BMW on the front 2 rows. Did it feel as though you were a bit of a wolf among the sheep?
Yeah, I mean, those things give a lot of draft, so I was quite happy just sat there, just being sucked along. It was all right, actually. I like to be a bit different, you know what I mean? It'd be a bit sad if everyone was in a BMW or everyone was in a Porsche.
Oh, indeed. You're definitely injecting the variety onto the grid. And in the early stage of the race, we did see yourself and also Mirko gradually start to make a bit of a break away. But intriguingly, of course, you were following him for the best part of the opening 10 or so laps, and then he decided to let you become the leader. Were you always expecting that?
No, well, I mean, it was very difficult. So when we first broke away, I thought, oh, this is brilliant, because I could just follow him, and that was one option I had to win the race, was to just sit behind him, try and save more fuel and more tyres. So I thought at that stage things were looking really good. But then as soon as he started to fuel save a bit more, Jordanowski behind started to catch up with his big train, and I didn't want to end up with him catching us and then being in just a massive train of cars, because obviously then Jordanowski could have made moves on me and it would have got very messy. So at that point I decided, you know what, best thing to do is probably just to overtake Mirko and then just try and pull a bit of a gap to 3rd and just kind of secure the 2nd place first and then see if anything could happen later, really.
Oh, makes sense. Like you say, give a bit of space, and that way the 2 of you can work together. And it's, in a way, the proverbial the enemy of my enemy is my friend situation, albeit you 2 were friends early on and you become enemies later on in the race. Strategy-wise, Road America, well, those circuits where you can save a lot of fuel and gain a lot of time on the straights. And in the end, it was 6 tenths in the pit lane that made the difference between the 2 of you.
I was very surprised actually. I thought he was going to go a lot further. I thought he'd go at least 2 laps more. Like, I mean, I was able to save while putting the gap to third, but I would have thought he would be able to save a lot more. And so I was super surprised he came in the lap after me, and then I was very surprised to actually see him as I was coming along the straight. I thought he'd be kind of a good 2-3 seconds, and I thought maybe he's taking a tyre or something, but yeah, it wasn't quite to be. But he was very slow on that first out lap. I think the tyres take kind of 1 lap to warm up. I actually did get a run on him on the straight on that first lap after the pit stop, and in my head I was like, do I overtake him? Do I not? It was really like 50-50, and I just thought, I don't want 25 minutes of defending from Mirko Bortolotti. I thought that was a bad idea, so I thought I'd stick behind him and try and, maybe get a bit of a tyre offset, or maybe he's not fueled correctly and he would have to save and I wouldn't. But yeah, in the end, he was just way too fast.
Oh, fair play. We may have proven a bit too quick. And like you say, trying to hold on for 25 minutes may have been a bit too much at last, but still, maiden podium of the season. The results are coming nicely, and with the momentum, in 2 weeks' time, we make our way to Interlagos. What can we expect from you there?
I mean, I love Interlagos. I think it's great. If the track temps are high, it'll be a very hard track on the tyres, so I'm not sure how that's going to work out. And also with the whole thing with it being at altitude, that affects the engines, whether they're turbos or naturally aspirated. So typically the vets haven't done as well there, but we'll see how the BMW Ferrari dynamic kind of works. But I mean, could be good, but it just depends if you can hold on to the tyres, really.
Well, we'll have to wait and see if that's the way it goes. Also, I've got to ask you, mixed conditions expected at Interlagos. Does that change your perspective at all?
Yeah, that makes things very difficult. I mean, God knows, it'll be more of a coin toss, I guess. But I mean, Mirko has been brilliant in the rain when it's rained as well. So you'd like to think it might level the playing field, but probably not.
Well, it may do, it may not. We'll have to see which way it does go. But just before I do let you go, is there anyone you'd like to give a shout out or a mention to on the broadcast?
Yeah, obviously, thanks to Altitude, and also thanks to GPX for taking me on this season. No one else from Altitude wanted to do it, and James Bostock reached out, and so we've teamed up for this season. And yeah, I was in a voice chat this week, and yeah, great bunch of lads. So yeah, really enjoying my time there and racing with those guys. And obviously thanks to you for running another season. Absolutely love GTEs, and it's brilliant to have this like Premier League to race them in.
Oh, it's our pleasure, Tim. We have to say a big thank you to you for being one of our stars on the grid. We love to see you out there, giving it your all in the pro class and in an absolutely beautiful looking Ferrari, no less. Wasn't quite the win today, but still an absolutely well-deserved second place. And we look forward to plenty more to come from yourself as the season goes on, including next time at Interlagos. But until then, congratulations on the podium. Go celebrate and have a wonderful rest of your evening.
Thank you very much, Paul.
So here and there, ladies and gentlemen, from Tim Perry, happy with his performance today, no doubt about it, and talking about the fact feeling very comfortable in the Ferrari, and feels like what was already a good car has become a stronger car, and one that he feels now really is becoming the strategy car, which does work very nice the deeper you go into the race. Talking specifically about qualifying, was happy to be in around the BMWs and finding that the BMWs are proving to be the cars that you want to be around when you want to pick up a big toe on a straight. However, early on in the race, the game plan was work with the man who won today, Mirko Bortolotti, to break away and don't end up in what would be a 4-5-way fight for the win, but instead make yourself a little bit selfish and turn into a two-way fight. And then it became all about strategy, but surprised perhaps at how close he was versus Bortolotti. And well, we'll never quite know whether Bortolotti's fuel tank was running very low or whether he decided to react to Perry. What we did see in the end was 6/10 of difference, and Perry saying that in the end he decided not to go for the move on the outlap for Bortolotti because Perry had pitted the lap before, and the reason was because he didn't want to turn it into 25 minutes of having to defend for his life, essentially. Albeit, in the end, couldn't quite hold on to Bortolotti, who did open up a bit of a gap, but proving to be very close there. But a question of, an answer of anything can be expected at Interlagos. He was saying there were high track temperatures, also rain in the forecast as well. So Brazil in 2 weeks' time in round number 3. Well, Perry may surprise us all. Indeed, it could surprise us entirely that round. We'll have to wait and see what he can bring to the table there in his Ferrari. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, we've got a few more interviews to come, so we'll be right back for our second interview of today. And so, ladies and gentlemen, it's now my pleasure to introduce to you in the interview room your interclass winner from today. He joins me now. It is none other than Flavien Thieffry. Flavien, good evening to you. What a drive to the win. I mean, you must be absolutely ecstatic.
Hey, Paul. Yeah, fantastic race for me. I'm really happy with the result. Really happy, man. I cannot stop smiling at the minute.
Well, to be fair, you deserve to be smiling with that result, particularly after Fuji, where it was you had the pace to win, but it was a disaster at Fuji. We had to recover from so far back. Here today, meanwhile, taking third place in qualifying, did you feel as though this could be a repeat of Fuji? Because I think you started second or third at Fuji 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, I think I started second in Fuji, but to be honest, it was not even in the back of my mind. As you saw, Paul, the pace was super close in qualifying. I was really chuffed with one of my laps. I think I was holding P1 for, I don't know, maybe 10 or 15 minutes, and sadly I could not improve at the end, but I was more worried about my placement at the start, left side or right side. And to be honest, Robert Papai, I think he improved at the end, which put me on the inside, which I was really happy with. And he actually did me a solid there. So I think, in Fuji, I was quick enough, consistent. I did some costly mistakes, and it was really about avoiding a repeat of that today. So Serena, she was really consistent back in round one. So I took some learnings from there and applied them today.
Well, definitely, it's impressive how you've evolved from Fuji and learned from the mistakes there. And coming on to the point about your battle for the win in the end, of course, we did see a bit of a gamble and strategy with Serena Tahar changing the two left side tyres, as we understand it. You meanwhile opted to just simply put fuel in the car. Was that always the plan?
Yeah, exactly. It was the plan coming into the race. Last race we did at Fuji and also the preseason prologue at Silverstone. Well, it showed, that not changing tires in these races that are 1 hour and a half, it's doable if you manage them a little bit. So that's what I focused on today, just easing off in the right-handers, especially carousel, because that takes a lot of energy out the tires, and yeah, it worked out perfectly in the end. I think it was the winning strategy today, and really happy I managed to pull it together.
Oh, it was a brilliant performance for yourself to pull it together, like you say, and really manage the car. And it does mean now you've got your first win on the board. It's taken a little bit of time, but this class, the interclass, so closely matched the moment. I mean, we've seen you in some very close classes previously, but does it feel as though this season you've really got to step up your game?
Definitely, Paul. Well, on the first point, the win has long been coming. It's my third season here. Been pretty happy to be there since the beginning, and thank you guys for setting this up. I do really think the GTE cars deserve a lot more attention from iRacers in general. And yeah, onto the second point. The pace is really competitive this season. It's probably always been really close, but you really have to fight for it. Last couple of seasons I was a bit more towards the midfield of the class. Maybe on a good day I can fight for podium or top 5, and I think this season I can fight for the top 3 positions regularly. Maybe it's due in part to people being promoted to pro, I don't know. But maybe I just upped my game. Well, I definitely feel like I upped my game. You get to know these cars better and better. You learn all the time, doing laps in practice and the races, and also you have to study telemetry, find out these last couple of tenths if you want to come out on top, because the competition is so hard, and that just makes the wins and good results sweeter.
Oh, 100% agree with you on that one. Indeed, any victory when you're in such a competitive field is going to feel so special. This one's definitely up there as a special achievement for yourself. But of course, it could be the start of more victories to come. Next time, we head to Interlagos for our first 2-hour race. But there's also some rain on the cards. How are you feeling for it?
Yeah, Really looking forward to that one. Interlagos is one of my favorite tracks, and as you say, there's a twist on it this time with the longer race and also the mixed weather. So I'll definitely prepare to make sure I can be as quick and consistent as possible. I think there will be a lot of surprises there. The track is good for racing, but you know, with the elevation changes, there could be some puddles in some interesting places. So yeah, looking forward to practice there, work on the setup, and do laps with my team.
Well, we look forward to seeing what you and the team can bring to the table in Brazil in 2 weeks' time. But just before we do let you go, Flavien, is there anyone you'd like to give a shout out or a mention to live on the broadcast?
Yeah, sure. I want to thank my team, Sport Racing, John, Dennis, Pascal, and all the guys there. Also want to thank you, the commentator, the admins, and the stewards also, who have, so far, I think they've had a fair share of work. And hopefully not much more tonight. But yeah, also I want to thank God and Jesus Christ for this win. And it feels really good. So have a good night, Paul. Thank you for the stream. I will watch it back a bit later and enjoy seeing what happened in the other parts of the standings and of the track.
Oh, Flavien, well, we've absolutely loved having you join me here in the interview room. Congratulations once again on your maiden win of the season. Go celebrate, go enjoy it, and have a wonderful evening. We'll see you at Interlagos 2 weeks from now.
Thank you, Paul. See you.
So hearing there from a very happy Flavien Thieffry, lovely gentleman, I must admit. I mean, all the drivers are lovely to talk to, no matter who they are. That's the great thing. You can really tell we have a grid full of GTE enthusiasts who've got plenty of time to talk about what they do on the circuit and also about the teams and the cars they race. But today, the Supersport Racing driver let his driving do the talking, and we're talking out there the fact having to learn from the mistakes of Fuji, particularly on strategy and also the way the race played out. But it's crazy to think his biggest concern was where that third place in qualifying, or 15th overall, put him with regards to the lane on the grid. And in the end, it worked out nicely for him. But that is how he's really been looking at the season so far, Flavien, taking all the mistakes of Fuji, plus also learning from previous seasons and going, you know what, is this going to work out? And it's worked out for him today. On strategies, we'll learn from what happened at Fuji, seeing, of course, what was the not taking fuel at Fuji and how it helped Brian Beardsworth out, but also helped out some of his rivals, and seeing it was the right strategy to go with here. And, well, this could be the start of something special, but, of course, there's plenty more rounds to come. And he and the team at Supersport Racing are excited for what's to come at Interlagos. We'll have to see whether he can make it 2 in a row. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, we've got more interviews to come. Next up, well, I believe we are heading back to the pro class. And well, ladies and gents, we head back to the pro class, and joining me now in the interview room is someone we've heard from in the past. We absolutely love to talk to him. It's none other than Jan Lins. Jan, good evening to you, and well, challenging race today, 6th in the end, but it could have been a top 5 or a podium.
Oh, come on. Don't tell me that, mate. Yeah, hi. Good to be back. Yeah, good race, but the frustration about losing at least 2 places. The missing the cones from a braking point into turn 1 was a bit, yeah, frustrating. But good result for the team and for me too. So, and also what I saw, I had no idea that I have the fastest lap of the race.
Oh,
That's
was a quick
quite
lap.
something.
Feel free to talk more about that.
I think I had no idea. I think it's lap 6 or lap 7. Just Mirko told me after the race, "Hey, you have the fastest lap." I saw what? No way. Yeah. I think Tim had a even faster lap, but he had an off track. So yeah, first fastest lap at all. So yeah, good to be back. Went good.
Oh, 100%. We're really happy to see you back in fine form. Although you may have got the fastest lap. What happened in qualifying? Because it's almost as if you did what your teammate Christian did at Fuji only 2 weeks ago, whereby he completely got qualifying wrong. And here today, you took 12th overall, 10th in class.
I was quite happy with qualifying. I think I could have found 2 or 3 tenths. I lost it. I lost them first stint, and I went out again. But yeah, I found my teammates in the last corner, entering the last corner, and had no chance to avoid them. I could have done 1 lap more, but I don't know if I could have driven faster. So quali is normally not my strength. More the bit consistency and trying to avoid mistakes. Less or few incidents. Okay, this time where I had 10 incident points, so I had to be careful after the pit stop. But yeah, no, quali, it's not my preferred setting. Let's say it that way.
All fair. To be and understandably, whilst qualifying might not be your preferred sessions, race-wise, you were quick from the outset, really trying to push your way forward, and we did see you in a very tight lead pack. I mean, I think in the end, whilst Mirko Bortolotti and Tim Perry pulled away, 3rd through to 8th were separated by only, at some points, 3 or 4 seconds, and you were right in the middle of it.
Yeah, I was, yeah. Normally, I'm not used to that, and to also keep the pace, keep the distance. I just went a bit on fuel save mode to and not push too much. So just stay in the train to take the tow and see how it goes out, and maybe profit of 1 or 2 mistakes. Okay, from at least from my 1 or 2 did a small mistake, so. Could use a bit of that. And also, when did I start training? I think, yeah, Wednesday evening. I came back home after 7 weeks without racing, without simulator. So quite a late start. Maybe I should do that more often to have the pace. I don't.
What a fair play. Well, even if you haven't had that much practice, it goes to show you that the skill you have in the GT never goes away. Although you were saying about it earlier, we do have to come back to it. What happened after the pit stop? Because that was that trip to the grass that ended all the momentum.
Yeah, I think we got out exactly the same as we went in. Christian, then it was me, and behind me Marinko, all teammates, and then turn 2, Christian missed his braking point and the apex, and that was the case for me the last corner before the carousel. Was just a bit late on the brakes and just a bit wide, nothing serious, just a couple of tenths, and Marinko went through. I was in his tow after that. I think 2 laps later was the ominous turn 1. Just was pretty focused on his car and keep the distance. And suddenly I see him braking and look to the left. Oh, where's my braking point? It was nowhere. So yeah, it was, I think, maybe 20 meters or so late on the brakes. Luckily, I avoided him. Okay, that wasn't that tight, but luckily it was only me going wide. A bit wide. I think 7 or 8 seconds were lost there. But yeah, 2 positions, and that's it. You know, sometimes you profit of some things, and sometimes you just miss the breaking point. My fault.
Oh, indeed. Like you say, sometimes it works out, sometimes it doesn't. But it doesn't take away from a solid drive from yourself today to take 6th in the Pro Class. More rounds to come. 2 weeks from now, we head to Brazil for the Interlagos circuit. 2 hours of racing, plus the risk of rain as well. How are you feeling for it?
Trip almost back home. Lagos is quite a good track, and also with the Corvette. So let's see how it pans out. Some preparation. Let's see how the setup goes. And normally we have no problem with setups. Okay, I do not build them, but colleagues. So yeah, I look forward to it. 2 hours. Yeah, that will be hopefully a bit colder, around here. Today was colder, but it was still very sweaty. So see how it pans out. And yeah, if it rains for everyone. So let's keep it cool and calm, and see. Let's see how it goes. Yeah.
Well, fair play to you. Cool and calm may be the way. We'll see you there in 2 weeks from today. But just before we do say farewell to yourself, is there anyone you'd like to give a shout out or a thank you on the broadcast?
Yeah, the Orga first, and then also Team TGI by GRT for a great DTM weekend last week. And yeah, the Nürburgring was a great experience. So, and also extremely well-driven 5 for Mirko, coming back from the back of the grid, and was just an amazing experience. So shout out to them and to DTM.
Well, Jan, thank you for joining me in the interview room. It's been an absolute blast to catch up with yourself, and we look forward to even more impressive racing from yourself in the weeks ahead, including Interlagos 2 weeks from now. But until then, congratulations on 6th place in Pro today. Have a lovely evening, and we'll see you next round.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
So hearing there, ladies and gentlemen, from Jan Lentz, the ART Team GazX driver. Always great to catch up with him, and talking out the fact there, whilst we thought perhaps he'd not had the greatest qualifying sessions, he was very happy with his qualifying performance. And it just goes to show you, sometimes just because you don't have the best result externally, internally you can feel as though actually it's good, it's somewhere to work forward from. And of course, didn't really want to perhaps talk too much about initially what had happened in the race, that mistake that cost him so much time when he was potentially on course for the chance of a podium in the pro class, but then said it was a mistake that was made, nothing more to it than that, made a mistake of his own doing, one to learn from. And that's the great thing about Jan Lentz. He learns from things. His race pace really is one of his strongest suits, but also the fact that he's like a bit of an information sponge. He's really able to take things in from round to round and grow stronger. And I get the feeling we're going to be seeing him pushing regularly for Pro Top 5s this season, and also some podiums out there. But excited for the prospect of Interlagos and taking the Corvette there, a circuit he typically goes well at, as we've seen in previous seasons. And can he make history repeat itself and perhaps come away with a great result in 2 weeks' time? We'll definitely have to wait and see. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, we've got one more interview to come, and we'll be right back for our final interview of the day. And so, ladies and gentlemen, it is time for our final interview of this evening. And who better to come to for our final interview than none other than Dr. Dwayne Hoffman, who joins me now in the interview room. Dwayne, good afternoon to you. A good race today for yourself and for the team as well, going from 16th in Inter to 9th in the race. You must be pleased.
No, it was actually awful. To be quite candid, Paul. We knew we were going to take a gigantic risk in our setups for the Ford. To give you an idea of how crazy we went off the reservation, so to speak, Alina and Nathan and I, we all ran 1 degree of wing and 5 or 6 mil of rake. We went for outright pure speed. And Witte, as usual, does Witte things and drove an excellent race. Nathan had not had the amount of practice he needed. You know, that pesky thing called life getting in the way. And I'll talk about myself after acknowledging the whole group. But, you know, Ellen and Jesus, they had struggles. Jesse coming back into proper iRacing, you know, he's had life going on as well. So very much a mixed bag. Really the the driver of the day was Andy Rooney. Andy's so mild-mannered, kind, just a gentle spirit, and his early pit was really the difference for him. He's still coming to grips with the RSR, but he's been putting in the work, and he's definitely driver of the day. If there was an award for the Village Idiot of the Day, that's me. I claim that with the dunce hat in the obligatory corner. Even though I'm P9, and even though it was definitely a much better overall performance than Fuji, I was my own worst enemy today. And so more work to be done in Inter. The margin of error is definitely smaller than Club. But overall, in terms of setup, all 4 cars that Gunther and Phoebe supported, we took so much wing off the car. We took off ride height, and we were very swift down the straights. Out of the draft on light gas, in the turn 1, I hit 275 kilometers per hour. So we were rapid in a straight line.
Well, definitely having those rapid setups. We did see some surprise moments such as Alina Whitman just charging past drivers on the straights there. It just showed the speed. But you're saying to yourself there, saying about yourself, a bit of a day where just things haven't worked and referring to yourself as the village idiot. But surely at the same time as well, plenty to learn from going into the rounds ahead. It's not always bad news.
Well, I think part of the reason why I say that, Paul, is not from position of fake modesty. It is because of being the bridge between not only 2 separate teams, 2 separate communities, 2 different mindsets. The pursuit of excellence is not a slogan, it's not this abstract idea. It's something that we practice and strive for. And so knowing that the Ford we are still developing, we've taken strides in the development of that car. The same thing with the Corvette as well. Jose provided some excellent feedback and made the Corvette much better with an hour before quali started. You know, the inherent challenge we're going to have is you have 10 drivers that basically Felinity supports 5, Full Tilt supports 5, and having the whole band, so to speak, play the same note in the same song. So for me, I'm definitely having to work much harder than I did last season. That's a good thing. I definitely felt my pace was much better vis-a-vis my peers than at Fuji. Fuji, we frankly missed the setup. Here, we had a really good setup for the Ford. So I think once I take a couple days and think it over, I'm like, you know, that's a step forward.
I see. And like you say, when you are having to really balance what is a variety of cars plus also 5 individual teams all trying to work together, no wonder there's always going to be steps forward, but it might be some tough progress every so often. I had to ask, with the Ford GT in particular, which you're driving this season, what are perhaps the biggest challenges with the car compared to the BMW you drove in Season 2?
So, you know, the best way to describe it for those in the chat that's trying to understand feel, you know, we'll put that in air quotes, is Ford is a little bit more boutique. The operating range of the Ford is a little bit more narrow. But the Ford, as long as you don't over rev it, has very good power curve. It's a very consistent power curve. So it really focuses on corner entry. The BMW, with the engine being in the front, the key thing about the M8 is corner exit. So they're two very different cars. Last year, the meme with us was when in doubt, put more downforce on the car. This year's the direct opposite. When in doubt, take downforce off of the car. And so the mechanics of how it drives, the corner rotation is very different. The Ford pivots at a faster rate than the M8. But I will tell you candidly, we felt the M8 would be a beast here. Just our internal testing in the M8, we were 277 kph into turn 1, and we were 271 into Canada corner. So BMW, yeah, it knows how to go very hard in a straight line. I would say for those, in chat going, which car I would drive, if you are used to driving a front engine car in GT3, drive the M8. If you're used to driving a mid-engine car, drive the Ford or the Corvette.
Well, some sound advice there. Really appreciate you breaking it down. And it's good to see or hear about the differences there and the sort of focus aspects of how you get the most out of the cars, whether it's the Ford GT or the BMW. But of course, looking ahead to the next round that lies in wait, we head to Interlagos in 2 weeks' time. And unlike our first 2 rounds, 2 hours of racing and also rain on the cards. What's going to be the strategy?
I can only speak for myself on this. The beautiful thing about our confederation, Paul, is there are no team orders. And I think you saw that during the broadcast. Sol and I actually racing each other. I will tell you right now, for me, there will be 3 things that I look for. 1, I will watch the 93 Brazilian Grand Prix for inspiration. 2, we know from last season at Interlagos just how slick the track becomes. It's one of those where I was looking it up. The track went from, and we have different colors, but basically the worst track state in our monitoring, that happened in 12 laps. So it had gone from a 50%, which is basically a yellow state, to a triple black. It's terrible. It's in 12 laps because Interlagos is very much a one-line circuit. So I am hoping for the rain. I'm eager for the rain because, as aforementioned by you last season, I believe it was either at Spa, Mexico City, do you go dry setup, wet wing, or wet setup, dry wing? And so I think you're going to see a lot of strategy in that. So that's going to be the second point. But I do think the third part is going to be qualifying is going to be hugely important. Interlagos is very much a track position. That's the thing that I took away last year. I didn't drive Interlagos that well, but I kept it together when it mattered. But you've got to have track position at Interlagos. With the 2-hour race, your pit window is pretty narrow. So the case for quote-unquote alternate strategies really is not there. So you need to be far up the grid with that. So I think those 3 things, that will be the strategy. I will say right now, do not be surprised if drivers that tend to be middle or back in their divisions suddenly find their ways forward. The rain does that.
Oh, indeed. That teases up very nicely for Interlagos, and I'm already excited at the thought of seeing it yourself and the full Tilt Virtual Motorsport, and of course the Fleur TV racing teams really try to extract the most out of the changing conditions at such a tough circuit for overtaking and also for dealing with mixed conditions. Just before we do let you go, Dwayne, is there anyone that you'd like to give a shout out or thank you to on the broadcast today?
I mean, we have 10 drivers, and what a privilege it is to bring over 15% of the grid on a full grid is one of our 2 entities. So to all 10 of the drivers, know that I appreciate you. I included with that. We're very thankful, Sim Magic, Rock Solid Rigs, Phoenix 10 livery design. We miss you, Phil. But we've also added a little something Mark is working on, and it was very humbling last year when Full Tilt had a sticker that says "Powered by Dr. Gyro," and that is something we're looking at. As you mentioned, the new updated liveries. We're looking at, okay, where do we put that? Because the livery looks so good. There's a fear of too much. And over on Salinity side, Cato Nation, what a great community they are. And it's really about it. We're going to do our homework. We've already started working on set configuration. We know, for those wondering, it's going to rain first and then dry out. We know this for Interlagos already. So keep that in mind.
Oh, we definitely will. Dwayne, it's been a blast to catch up with you. It's always good to chat with you in the interview room. But with that, we'll call it for now. Thank you for your time this evening, and well done to yourself and the collective teams for their achievements. Like you said, a big shout out there to Andy Rooney for a huge result. We'll see you all at Interlagos, but until then, have a wonderful rest of your day, and thank you once again.
Thank you, Paul. Thank you, everyone.
So here and there, ladies and gentlemen, for our final interview, Dwayne Hoffman for Full Tilt Virtual Motorsport Purple. But of course, talking there not just about himself and his team, but the whole collective set of teams, FTVM Purple and Red, and also the three Fidelity V Racing teams, a full V Racing, Rose, and also there, the other one does escape me for a brief moment. Indeed, it's a handful, and I can only imagine how much of a handful it must be. All the teams to work together, but at the same time as well, Fidelity V Racing Pink as well. So it's almost there, Rose, Pink, and Full. But either way, such a huge gathering together of teams all working together for the common goal of trying to move their way forward in their respective classes and their team's aspirations. And Dwayne definitely at the heart of it. Until now today, of course, the fact a bit of a challenging day for some team members. Things worked out very nicely. For Dwayne individually, didn't quite work out the way he wanted it to, despite the fact he did achieve a strong result for that 9th place finish in class, but it didn't quite click. And, well, did talk quite a bit about the Ford GT and what they're working on with this car, and finding it's all about corner entry rather than the corner exit of the BMW, so having to go for a bit of a different design philosophy, but also find that this is a car that can be exceptionally quick down the straights when you shave off all the rear wing, and the irony, of course, being that to get pace out the BMW last season, it was about taking the wing as low as possible. Here in the Ford GT, it seems to be about throwing some more rear wing onto the car to get the pace out of it, but indeed, that contradiction there, or that opposite approach, where it's all keeping things intriguing in the FTVM and the Fidelity V Racing garages, and we look forward to seeing what they can bring to the table in Interlagos, and seeing whether they can surprise us with some key results in a race that's definitely going to have some rain in there. And, well, we do know that in mixed conditions, to be those who plan it out can be the best out there, and Dwayne Hoffman is definitely one of those who's the smartest on the grid, and let's see if the smarts pay dividends in Brazil in 2 weeks' time. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, it's now time for us to wrap up our interviews and take a quick reminder of who we've spoken to. And as we can see, we've had 4 interviews this evening. A huge thank you to our drivers in the Pro and the Inter classes. Sadly, we didn't get time to speak to anybody in the Club class, but hopefully we will in a pair in 2 weeks' time when we have plenty more drivers for interview, of course. But today, we spoke to your Pro runner-up of Scuderia GPX's Tim Perry. We then came to Interclass winner of Supersport Racing's Flavio Tiefri. Then we went back to Pro to speak to a 6th place finish today, but podium and top 5 challenger for ART Team GazX. That was Jan Lentz. And then we also heard just now for Interclasses Full Tilt Virtual Motorsport Purple driver Dwayne Hoffman. A huge thank you to them all for joining me in the interview. I'm very grateful for their time this evening, and we look forward to plenty more racing action for them and all of our drivers at Interlagos. But with that, it is definitely time for us to wrap up. And thank you very much for watching. If you've enjoyed today's show and you're perhaps sat there right now wanting to know how you can get on the grid here at SimRacing International and go green flag racing with us, well, the easiest way to do so is firstly join the official Discord. Invite link at the bottom of the screen. It's easy to join and free to join as well. And you can potentially get yourself on the grid for any of our ongoing series, including, of course, on the very left-hand side, the Thursday GT3 Championship with its 2 splits, A and B, 120 drivers in total, split across 2 60-driver splits, and that runs on a weekly basis. In its 13th season, and definitely something that's going to keep on going strong, and I think plans are already underway for season 14. Alternatively, if you enjoy GTEs and you want to get on the grid for the GTE Championship season 3, you know you definitely want to do so. The GTE is always loved. That runs every 2 weeks on Friday evenings, and make sure you get yourself onto the reserve list. We've got plenty of reserves already, so don't miss your opportunity, as I'm sure we'll see some of those reserves make the way onto the grid like Thomas Pugh did today as the rounds go on. Then, of course, if you do like racing at the weekend and you're a GT3 fan, we do have you covered there with the UK SimRacing Sunday Showdown in its 19th season. That runs every Sunday evening. But if you're looking for something for brand new, a multi-class series and putting some of the very best on iRacing against each other, we can see our Motorsport UK Esports Approved Championship, the first of its kind, and it's of course the SimRacing International Transatlantic Trophy Season 1, dedicated to the GT3 and GT4 machines of Bruce McLaren, and they go racing every 2 weeks on Wednesday evenings, so round number 2, less than a week away. But if you're looking for something brand what is absolutely free of charge, I'd say, not brand new, although it will be on different days each and every week, so you could say it's brand new every week regards to the practice available. Of course, we do have our practice league that runs on a weekly basis, and that can be a variety of GT3 and GT machines and some GT4s as well. So there's never been a better time to get on the grid here at SimRacing International, whether you're an esports professional all the way through to a rookie racer. But with that, we'd also like to take a moment to say a big thank you to our series and league sponsors, who do include CarMate, More Technology, the GP2 Group, and lastly, we'd like to say a big thank you to Motorsport UK's esports division for recognising us here at SimRacing International as a recommended community. Long may that recognition continue. We're very proud of it all the way through 2026 and beyond into the years ahead. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, we turn our attentions to round number 3. Save the date in your diary. Friday the 4th of September 2026. The story continues. We head southwards from the US of A to none other than Brazil for the Autodromo Jose Carlos Pache, also known as Interlagos, the circuit between 2 artificial man-made lakes in Sao Paulo, Brazil. And there with rain on the cards, who exactly in our first 2-hour endurance race will be able to outsmart their rivals and the conditions to come away on top. Well, in the pro class, Mirko Bortolotti has made it 2 for 2, but unlike Fuji, Tim Perry kept him honest every step of the way today. As for the interclass, we have seen victories shared between Serena Tahar and Flavio Tiefri, and could we see a third name take to the top step in Brazil? And as for the club class, well, Brian Beardsworth has made it 2 in a row, but what we have seen in our first 2 rounds is that it's any way we could go when you do have the best part of 5 to 10 drivers all showing race-leading pace at different points in the race. But how will our story continue in round number 3? Tune in 2 weeks' time to find out. But until then, ladies and gentlemen, you've been tuned in to the SimRacing International GT Championship Season 3. I've been your host and commentator, Paul Walsh, and until next time, remember to stay safe, stay well, stay smiling, and most importantly, as always, remember to stay on track. Good night.